Welcome to this regular meeting of the Okemos Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the business of the school board. There are two opportunities for public comment. Citizens who wish to address agenda or non-agenda items will have an opportunity at the beginning of the meeting as well as near the end of the meeting. In-person individuals who wish to address the board must complete the blue form located with the agendas near the room entrance and present it to the board secretary, Trustee Doxey there, prior to the start of the agenda item. Virtual participants must submit their name and address and a message through the chat box located in Zoom's meeting controls prior to the start of the agenda item. At the appropriate point in the agenda, I will call upon individuals who have submitted a blue card or chat message, and the individual's microphone will be unmuted for their comments. Before we start, we want to do a call to order. Secretary Doxey, will you do a call, please?
Yes. Tom Buffett.
Here.
Jason Burns.
Here.
Katie Kavanaugh.
Here.
Andrew Phipps.
Here.
Lenny Streppa.
Here.
Jillian Wynn.
Here.
And Shalon Doxey, I am here.
Everyone is here. Thank you. We're going to start with recognizing some of our employees who have achieved mark of 24 years.
Oh, please.
The following people have worked in Okemos Public Schools for 24 years. Two of them are with us here tonight, I believe, but some that are not are Brian Howard, who's a business teacher at Okemos High School. Make sure he gets that.
Brian Herod.
Brian Herod, excuse me. Thank you. And let's see, Rolette Hankey, who is a food service worker who's been here for 24 years. And Laura Richter is a science teacher also at Okemos High School for 24 years. We have two folks who are here with us tonight. One is Margie McJames. She has currently, she's a math teacher at OHS, but she has also taught language arts, theater, as well as math. She's also served as director of theater and advisor to the Black Student Union. Earlier in her life, she was a member of the Central Michigan Orchesis Dance Theater, where she met her dance partner of her life, her husband, Ken McJames. So please join me in congratulating Margaret McJames.
President Buffett, I don't see Wanda. Wanda, are you here? Oh, Wanda, right in the front.
Thank you for the segue, Superintendent Hood.
Yep.
Wanda Derchowski, thank you. Special education, also at Okemos High School. And let's see, she actually, one of the things that she shared is that she remembers her very first classroom. It was our first classroom computer was an Apple II, which she wrote her master's thesis on. Each floppy disk, and we can explain that to people later if you're not sure what that is, held about 5 pages. And she had a couple of those first Macs in her classroom through a grant that she was awarded. So among other things, she has taught special ed also at Kinawa Middle School and Chippewa and now at the high school. So she's followed some of the students up, I'm sure. So please join me in congratulating Wanda Derchowski. Okay, next up, we have a presentation about the community education program. Superintendent Hood.
Yeah, thank you. So our community ed coordinator, Christina Algieri, and director Laris Lee are going to present an update tonight regarding reorganization of our community ed childcare programming. Before they begin, I do want to preface their presentation a bit for the board and community in terms of a difficult conversation tonight in regards to our community ed programming, especially in light of looking at the overall Okemos budget. So the revised budget is coming forth tonight to trustees, and you're aware that that's a $1.6 million deficit, a revised budget. So it's our starting point for moving forward with the district's budgeting for next year. And our community needs to know by the end of June, our budget has to be balanced, or we have to make up that deficit out of our fund balance we're required to have a balanced budget for our district moving forward. So Community Ed Coordinator Algieri has only been with us in that position for the last couple of months. And prior to that, we had Coordinator Bertram in the position. And we had recognized that Community Ed was no longer providing money to the general fund. In the past, Community Ed had made money for the district and contributed to the general fund. And we saw that change during Community Ed Coordinator Bertram's tenure. Some of that you'll hear tonight might have been related to some COVID things, some of that related to classroom ratios not being maxed out. And it got us into a position of Community Ed losing money and taking money away from the general fund or K-12 programming. So my job as superintendent is to share with the board and trustees what that deficit is and a recommendation for how to make that up. There's no joy in presenting a recommendation like this because our childcare workers work very hard to provide this service to our families and have done a remarkable job providing that service for some of them for 29 years in these programs. So with that, we'll present and take questions from our trustees. What I'm looking for from trustees tonight is, I've made a recommendation for how I feel we should move forward. And I want the trustees to discuss that recommendation and see what concerns you may have, if there's additional information you need. We'll figure out our direction then moving forward after that. Okay. So without further ado, let me share my screen.
All right, can you go to the next
Yeah.
slide, actually?
So introduce yourselves,
Oh,
please. Yeah.
yes, my name is Lara Slee. I am the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the district, and part of my responsibility is working with the early childhood programming. Could you introduce yourself?
I'm Christina Allighieri. I am the child care coordinator. I've been with the district since 2012 when I started as a child care worker at Edgewood.
All right. So just to give you, Mr. Hood talked a little bit about the historical kind of what landed us here. He talked about Community Ed historically providing funds for our general fund balance to support other programming within the K-12 realm of things. This slide is incomplete. It does not tell you the whole story, but another big impact on our programming was the COVID-19 pandemic. It disrupted everything, including our attendance and revenue within the program. We sustained programming with some grant funding, which has since gone away. So now we're looking to continue programming with a lot less influx of supplementary income to make these programs successful. What's left off of this slide, and we met with Edgewood staff earlier this afternoon. I heard you. We heard you. There was some significant within the last couple of years. Our staffing ratios were not managed as well as they should have been, which meant we weren't at our optimum levels, which means if it's a tuition program, if we're not at optimum levels, we're not making as much revenue. So there was a reluctance to enroll, and that's what staff was telling us earlier. I heard you. I wanted to put that out there as it was missing from this slide. But all things being, here we are. We're at a deficit. We're also concurrently looking at the state of Michigan is really trying to ramp up its preschool programming, universal preschool for all, which is predominantly 4-year-olds, and that's a direction in which we curricularly would like to spend a lot of our energy there, as well as in the, with 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds.
At Community Education, we're proud to present many different opportunities for our families. At Edgewood, we offer year-round care for our infant, 1, 2, and 3-year-old children. We also offer 4 GSRP programs that are for our 4-year-olds, and that runs school year. At OPM, we offer a PPK program for our 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. And then in the afternoon, there is an enrichment program currently held at Edgewood for those registered 3 and 4-year-olds. Additionally, we offer before and after care, preschool all the way through 8th grade. Before and after care is offered at Edgewood, all of our elementary schools, as well as at Kenowa. Edgewood also offers break day care, snow day care, and summer programming for our families.
So just to throw some numbers up there, we are in need of some restructuring, given some of these staffing challenges, financial challenges. We want to offer programming that's highly effective, high quality, as well as financially sustainable. That is, with public dollars, that's what we need to be looking at. And historically, our youngest programming has been subsidized by other programs. In other ways. And here's just our infant, toddler 1s and toddler 2s is running at a deficit of about $250,000, and our Montessori afternoon enrichment program at a loss of $82,000. So we're going to talk about.
Our goal is to provide our community with safe and sustainable, equitable programs, like Lara said. We're lucky enough to have a great partnership to make this happen with the Ingham ISD. We also have, as a licensed program, are held to expectations through the Great Start Equality Program rating scales. Currently, due to some situations, we are functioning at a 1-star, maintaining health and safety, but my team is aiming for the stars, and we really want to go towards that 5-star rating and goals to make our whole building a high quality program for all.
So currently we're stretched pretty widely this way. We've got infants all the way to 4-year-olds, and as Christina said, lots of different programming, before and after care, preschool, day childcare, et cetera. So we're looking to shrink that down, consolidate, and really focus our energy on safe, equitable, accessible, high quality programming for 3 and 4-year-olds. So the plan would be to discontinue infant, toddler 1 and toddler 2 programs. We want to maintain our current, we have 4 classrooms that are Great Start Readiness Program classrooms, which is grant funded, which means free to our students, as well as research-based, state-approved curriculum, et cetera. And it comes with like a lot of family outreach and making sure that our families are connected with resources within the community that they need. And that's what we work in partnership with the ISD on that programming. We want to maintain our 3-year-old classroom, which is tuition-based, and potentially add an additional classroom to support incoming 3-year-olds. We would continue to offer before and after care at Edgewood for preschool. We would discontinue the Montessori afternoon enrichment program and potentially transition to an afternoon GSRP program in its place. And we would discontinue the Montessori before and after care program at OPM for preschool. She's the expert on this.
I didn't want to scare families and them thinking that we didn't have it for our older kids. So our timeline, in January, we want to communicate this to our staff, our families, and to you, the board. In February, we want to finalize our staffing plans for the 25-26 school year. In April, on the 30th, we would discontinue our infant and 1-year-old classroom programming. In June, we would run enrichment up until the last day of school and then discontinue that program. We would also continue enrollment for our 3 and 4-year-old programs in June. And then in August, we would transition our current 2-year-old children into their new 3-year-old classroom. We would transition our 3-year-old children into their new GSRP classrooms. We would continue enrollment as well as opening up any additional classrooms that we're able to bring on and welcome our families back in the fall.
Can I just interject with one thing? We recognize that we have an amazing staff, and this affects this recommendation. It hurts because we know that it has negative impacts on not just families, students, but also our staff. And we would make every effort to figure out where they fit in our future programming. And some of that requires different qualifications, but there's ways that we can work with that and try to retain as many people as possible. I think that's it.
All right, well,
Okay.
take questions.
Trustee Nguyen, did you want to start? Oh, Trustee Doxy?
Yes, I've got a few questions. Do you, can you provide the numbers in terms of how many families would be impacted, particularly families who have school-age children as well that are currently being served or supported in the childcare programs?
To reference our infant and toddler and enrichment programs, we have 11 affected infant and 1-year-old, or 15 affected infant and 1-year-old families, 11 2-year-old families, and 11 enrichment families. As for how many families we serve overall, I'd have to get back to you.
Yeah, I would like that information. It's just helpful to have the full picture in terms of the impact, again, for those who have the school-age children. You mentioned that we're currently functioning at a 1-star rating. How long have we been at a 1-star rating?
We had a investigation in early August, which caused us to go on a provisional license. Once we are done with our 6 months provisional, I can resubmit and work with our Great Start to Quality support to get back to where we were. Edgewood typically has functioned at a 4-star.
And Director Slee, you mentioned that the programs were previously subsidized with other funds. Do you know what other funds we've used outside of the COVID grants that we've received?
I know that we the tuition that families pay for our before and after care has been used to support the infant and toddler programs. And then the district also provides a lot of, I guess, I don't want to say in kind because we're paying for it, but support for the building that they don't charge us for, like custodial and things like that. So that part's harder to quantify, but it's definitely, most of the funding is coming from that before and after care tuition.
And one last question for now anyways. So for the Montessori, if I'm understanding, the proposal is to in the enrichment piece. So the Montessori, my kids went through the program, but they're middle school, so I don't really remember, but I do remember I had to do the full wraparound package. So before enrichment and aftercare and the preschool piece for it to work for my family. So they would be eligible for before and aftercare, but not the enrichment. And I see transition to half-day GSRP, which all families wouldn't be able to participate in that? I'm just trying to understand, like, what happens to families in that group.
So currently, before care and after care and enrichment is held at Edgewood. That transition happened this year due to us losing our space over at OPM. It's being remodeled and we don't know the state of where we'll be able to house the program in the future at this moment. So our children who are in our PPK program, who are enrolled in the morning, our 4-year-olds would be eligible then for the GSRP program as long as they turn 4 by December 1st. And then if a child were to need full day 3-year-old care, we do offer full day options with before care at Edgewood. The only caveat, it would not be that Montessori philosophy, but they could get that as a 4-year-old.
But the GSRP, there's income restrictions. I know the income limits have been expanded and I can't recall where they're at, but I just want to be clear, like, would all families be able to transition to the GSRP half-day program?
So the caps have been changed and we do not know the new guidelines for the fall, but at this time with universal preschool, the goal is for free preschool for all. And the curriculum for that GSRP program would also be Montessori, as that is an approved curriculum for GSRP. So.
Thank you.
Other questions, trustee Wynn?
So one question I had was, you were talking a little bit about the enrollment issues. In one of the letters we received, they talked about how there was like an enrollment hold that was recently added. So I guess one question I had was about, do you traditionally have a wait list? Have you had a wait list in the past? Do you not have one now because we have the 1-star rating? Or is it because you just are not opening and have like an enrollment hold? So I was wondering a little bit more about that.
Great question. Traditionally, we have had wait lists in every single one of our classrooms due to the high quality program that we offer. We are lucky to be in that situation. On average, most of our classrooms have a wait list of 15 to 60 children per classroom. Currently, I do have pending enrollments and wait lists for all of the classrooms. When I transitioned into this position, our building was put on a enrollment freeze while the state of the building was looked at, and a decision was made.
So, I'm a new board member, so I just want to state that first of all. So I don't really know the history of everything, but I did go back and look at past meeting minutes and different notes I had access to. This is the first time we've seen as a board this proposal. And so I was wondering a little bit about the timeline to end or restructure starting in April. As a board member, I really feel like it would be nice to have more time for us to look together at that top level. And how everything in the district fits together, and that's our job as the board, right? To look at how everything fits together. So yes, in the past, definitely, I understand that those were revenue generating programs, and I'm not necessarily saying that we can continue them in the current state. But I guess what I'm wondering is if there's additional plans that you looked at, if something you could bring to the board is an option 2 or an option 3 that looked at, I don't know, hate to say, raising tuition or some combination of different things, partnerships in the community. I guess I'm just like really concerned for these families because I have a 3-year-old, they do not go to that program. And I have 3 kids, but we toured 12 different places. And I know these are all families that care so much about where their child care is. And they're there because they trust the facility. Clearly, we can't continue in the current state with 1 star and low enrollments, but I guess I'm wondering, like, are there other strategies you could bring to the board so we could compare those? We're also going into both our budget season and we're going into our strategic plan season, which only happens every few years. So it seems like the perfect time for us to spend a little bit more time to really look at it from a top level and include some more community involvement about what we want to do as a district.
Trustee Phelps.
To that end, I see we have $332,000 deficit we're looking to make up. If we were to raise tuition, can you give us an idea of how much tuition would have to go up to make up that deficit to make the program self-sustaining?
Yes, I did propose other options. And one of the options was to keep our programs and increase our rates. On average, our infant and toddler program would raise about 500 to 550 extra a month to meet those deficits, as well as decreasing our office hours for our lead teachers a little bit, and then ensuring that we are maintaining our capacities and actually enrolling and keeping our classrooms full.
You said that's for infant
Infant and
toddler, about 550 per month.
extra per month, yes.
And I think another change would be the ratio. We would be at maximum. I don't know what you have these memorized.
All of our ratios are 1 to 4, and that is what we're functioning in our classrooms. Our infant room has gone from time to time where their max capacity is 9 versus 12. And that is something we could look at, is to make sure that all of our infant toddler classrooms maintained at a capacity of 12.
Other questions? Trustee Kavanaugh.
Can you, what's the current monthly rate?
Our infant is $335 a week and our toddler is $320 a week.
Okay, and how does that compare with other, do you happen to know other programs at other area, other facilities?
When we looked at the increase, it was an average of what other centers were offering. So it wasn't drastically for some of them. There are other programs who may have different rates, but I can get more rates for you if that's what you would like.
Thank you.
Other questions? Trustee Shrestha.
So I have 2 questions. You talked about the transitioning children. How many children will be transitioning, and do they have to be exactly 3, or can we start transitioning them when they are 2 and 9 months? And my second question is, let's say, I know you're working really hard at, trying to figure out what is the best option, and I appreciate that. But what type of resources do we have for the families? Because if we are ending the program in April, even for the transitioning families, and we are welcoming them, what I'm really concerned, where are they going to find care for those couple of months? Nobody is going to open the doors knowing they will not stay there.
So the transition piece, historically, Edgewood had gone transition the week of their birthday. When we did switch our 4-year-old classroom to the GSRP programming, we did streamline our transition policy to align with the age requirements for that program. So each of our classrooms, for example, our infants will then transition to the ones room. Anyone who's eligible would be 1 by that December 1st deadline of that year. So we will move classrooms as a whole each school year versus month by month that had been done in the past. Our 2-year-old classroom and our 3-year-old classroom would not be displaced in this plan, as we would hold them through August until they transition to the new classroom. Our infant and toddler in this plan does not have a current place to go, and we have not looked at the partnerships yet to see what openings are currently available in our local area.
I was wondering
Trustee Monia.
about that Montessori piece. I know, like, when you said there was a deficit of, maybe 2,000, does that include the current busing situation as well? Or is that like somewhere else in the budget, like under transportation? I was just curious.
I believe that's being captured in our transportation budget.
And then you weren't sure if moving forward, once the space was done being like fixed, if it would stay at Montessori? I guess I was wondering, are some of those costs gonna go away once the updates are made in the building.
We will have to check on the update of the space. I don't know if, I don't know what the status is in terms of renovating that space, because there was a lot of remediation that had to be done. Because it's down in the basement here, and I believe it retains quite a lot of moisture. So, I know there had to be some kind of environmental considerations taken care of before we get it back up to speed. But I don't know where it sits. We can find out. I just don't know where it sits in.
Because it's a budgetary.
Right. Yeah.
I have, one question, and, one kind of request for information. First question, how confident are you that at the end of the probation period, provisional certificate the period we're in now because of the 1-star rating, that we will improve that once that 6-month period is over?
We have amazing staff that are dedicated to high quality care. It just happened that there were a couple circumstances that put us in this situation, and those have been remedied, and new procedures have been put in place. And I'm very confident that we will go back to a good standing and be able to work towards that 5-star.
And just so we all know, what is the end of the 6-month period? When does that happen?
I think we have a couple more months.
Couple more months. Okay.
Yeah, I can get you the exact date on when our inspection is, or we'll timeline for that.
And then my other question is more for, again, for more information along the lines of what Trustee Doxy was asking for, in terms of just getting a solid picture of what the program looked like pre-COVID, when it was functioning well and actually contributing money to the general fund. I don't know if that was because of more enrollment in the infant toddler rooms or because of before and after care in other buildings. So just having some information to get us a sense of what a healthy enrollment looks like in the program offerings across the board would be really helpful.
We can provide that for you.
Can I ask one?
Trustee Sharsta, yeah.
So going back to the budget, is turnover a big concern, or is, because whenever there is a turnover, no matter where, it does take a lot of our budget. Like, if we do make this hard decision and go forward with 3- and 4-year-old classroom, what are the chances like we will not be in this position again, even with 2-, 3- and 4-year-old classrooms? Because we have missed the trend, it seems like, what was happening along the way.
Well, I think if the plan, if we were just doing 3- and 4-year-olds, the majority of that is grant funded. So those funds will take care of the majority of the costs. And then if we have 2- 3-year-old classrooms, we can definitely make sure that we're not getting in financial, that's pretty easy to kind of manage, I think. However, I think we need to do a better job of evaluating our programming on a regular basis and bringing forth numbers to you all, keeping our families informed of how things are going. I don't think that has happened in the past. There's been an ask for some transparency, and I think that we owe it to the community to provide that. So I think that would be part of regardless of what we end up doing, is that will be a part of how we move forward, is providing that accountability to the community, whatever we end up doing, because we should not be here in this position. So.
Last question.
Last question, Trustee.
So, did I hear this correctly? None of the staff members will be affected?
Every effort will be made to maintain current staff, but there are going to be, if we change to different programming, there are different requirements for staff in terms of credentialing. So there are opportunities to bring people in under compliance plans and then get their training up to speed, but it's not a one-to-one transition.
But
Trust-
with the classrooms that we have proposed, we are able to maintain the number of classrooms if we're able to get approved for what we're looking at.
Trustee Burns?
So related to some of the other questions, do you happen to have, kind of off the top of your head at your command, the revenues, losses for the current, 3 and 4-year-old programming?
That is not something I have, but that's something that we can get to.
And I have another question, which is just so, if it's an annual loss of $250,000, if we're thinking about the timeline that's proposed, should we assume that like if there was a decision to move the closing of the infant and toddler 1 rooms, would it cost like $20,000 a month to move that out?
Yeah, I believe, I think if I'm remembering correctly, it's about right on the nose. Like, I think it's about $20,000 a month that we would be losing every month we
Sure.
extend this. So.
Okay.
And that is a bit of, people may ask, well, why are you bringing this forward now? So, and the answer is there's never a good time to bring this forward for our families and for our staff members. People rely on their year-round programs. And when I look at our revised budget of a $1.6 million deficit and a $20,000 a month hole to fill that doesn't even get rid of that deficit, I felt compelled, being a steward of the dollars, to make sure the board and community were aware of that issue. So all this money, whether it's community ed or not, goes into the general fund, and that general fund funds not only our community ed programs, but our K-12 programs. So what you spend or lose in one, you hopefully you can make up in the other, but we'd like to see community ed contributing to the K-12 fund, not taking money away from the K-12 program.
And just to be clear, tonight is a discussion, right? When there's no action item associated with this work. And you started by, again, framing the discussion for us. Do you feel like you've heard from us what you hope to get out of this?
So I feel like there's some homework for us to do at the board. When we summarize, the board wants some additional data before either putting your stamp of approval on moving forward or coming up with a different approach. So we have some homework to do to bring back to the board, and we'll get that scheduled with the executive committee to bring back. Just knowing again that time here does cost money, and the board can decide that that's a good investment to make. But just again, be cognizant of the budget conversation we're going to have later. So just looking at board to make sure I'm reading that correctly in terms of getting answers to the questions that the trustees asked before we move forward on.
Can you
Anything.
just remind, I know we're having our budget discussion
Yeah.
later on tonight, but can you remind us again, so a 1.6 million deficit that we're
Yes.
working at, and can you just remind us of what brought us to that?
Yeah, for sure. So it's probably more complicated than I'll be able to explain, but Executive Director Lentz can weigh in. So a few things have happened that the district wasn't expecting. One is the environmental remediation at Kenowa. That was a big hit for us in terms of $900,000 expenditure out of our fund balance. Of course, we don't hope that one to be recurring, but that is a significant hit. The ISD changed the way that they're funding special ed. So for those of you in the community that aren't aware, all the money for special ed programming comes in through the ISD, and the ISD develops a formula to give it out to the local districts. The ISD has redone that formula, and that negatively impacted Okemos in the amount of $1.1 million a year of less special ed funding that we get. Again, not our decision, a decision by the ISD and how they distribute local monies. So, those, and that's annual. So those are the kind of some of the biggies that have accelerated this, as well as the childcare grants going away that were helping us maintain that programming. So there's other reasons we can get into later, some other, other operational reasons, but we actually are in a little bit better shape than we thought we'd be going into the school year with revised budget, but still not where we want to be in terms of going in with a balanced budget. Our district's fund balance, that's our rainy day fund. We like to have around 15%. I think we're 12.9% or so after that expenditure. And as a board, we'll see later that quickly goes away if we don't address that budget deficit. it can quickly drop from 12.9 to under 10 and then to under 5, which will affect our credit rating, our ability to borrow, and then could be some state oversight. So we want to stay out of that realm. So just putting that out there for everybody. Yeah.
So this might come up in our budget conversation later, but could you just communicate with the board about what you heard in terms of the information asked, so we make sure that we are on the same page in that regard?
Yeah, I was listening engaged, so I didn't take notes on all those. So I want to make sure that, Dr. Slade,
did,
you have them?
I
Yes.
think.
Yes.
Additional data, regarding a variety of things. So all the data, all the time, I think is what you want. Options, option A, option B, this was option A, option B, option C, what it might look like with some of that different, the numbers that Christina was talking about. And I do know that, trustee Buffett wanted to see what did programming look like back in the heyday when everything was running smoothly pre-COVID? So we could paint a picture of that. Did I miss anything?
Trustees?
Oh, and partnerships, like what transition plans might look like if we do make some transitions, like how do we support families through that?
Trustee Burns, what did you ask for in terms of your 3 and 4-year-old?
Currently, just like what, what that does with the budget, does that,
Got it.
make money, take money?
That's in my, all the data, all the time.
Trustee Shrestha?
Currently, our 3-year-old program is not at a loss, and our 4-year-old program at Edgewood is grant funded, so that is not at a loss. And then PPK, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but just as a general, but we'll get you that extra information.
So will one of the options also be where you said if we raise the tuition, will it also include that option where we can see the trend when we will be okay, the timeline?
We'd have to build in some assumptions, but we could show you that. Yeah.
Okay.
Assuming enrollments and everyone's willing to pay that, we could show you some assumptions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that information will be helpful, given what was shared in terms of that we have wait lists. So again, like we need to look at the full picture. What do we have? So we need to see that. Thank you.
Okay, trustee Wynn and then trustee Kavanaugh. No, it's okay. It's okay.
One question that I had, which is also a dated question, is about kind of pipeline and competition in the area. One of the letters we received talked about a trend of a lot of local programs moving to these GRSP programs. So there's a lack of those Tyler 1 and infant rooms. So I guess what I'm curious about is if we invest all our resources in these GRSP programs, are we going to have a harder time filling those spots because there's a lot of those in the community? And they're going to want to go places where they have infant and toddler rooms that those kids can move up into. I just want to make sure we're being really intentional with the success of those programs. We're going to be investing more in as well, because we want those obviously to be successful.
Trustee Kavanaugh?
I just want to, can I ask a really basic question? Are all of the families that use the infant and the toddler rooms, are those Okemos families, or can people come from other communities? And
It's a combination.
do you happen to know the numbers? Are most Okemos families or most?
I do not know the breakdown.
Okay, if it's okay with the board, I think I would like to hear from high school students before we do public comment, just because they've been here for a while and I think that they still have some other work to do, I'm guessing. So with that, Penelope and Xavier, would you please update us with our high school?
Thank you so much for having us today. Is this on? I think so. Thank you so much for the opportunity at school. Yeah.
For academics, finals have concluded and we started our second semester. We just wanted to say that we always appreciate that the Okemos library is open after school for kids to study and come in, and they're providing snacks, which is very nice. Students had new classes to look to for the new semester starting. plenty of new classes they signed up for. They had to look forward to them over a 5-day weekend because of the weather, which was nice. The school has now adjusted to having fewer bathrooms while the C to D hall ones are being fixed. Passing time did not feel long enough to accommodate everyone having to share 2 bathrooms, which are the A and D hall ones. There are still sometimes tardies due to this, but teachers are generally accommodating. And we are excited to have the other set open in early February. For clubs, BPA has states in March, and lots of teams have been very successful, and we are wishing them luck. Student council has been very productive this year in creating events and staff relations. We attribute this to having less members overall, so each member feels the need to contribute more. There will be a hot chocolate and donut fundraiser to support the new events this Friday, the 31st, for students.
Looking to sports, our varsity basketball teams have been putting in a lot of work this season. The boys have a record of 11-2, the girls with a record of 4-6. Also, the Eastside Stars hockey team has a positive record, and they recently had a couple important games, first of which being in partnership with Eli's project, the Mental Health Foundation, at Munn Ice Arena, and the second being an autism awareness game at Kalamazoo versus Matawan. So our hockey team's spreading lots of awareness in the community. Also, the Okemos Fun Squad, which was the new club this year, meant to just raise student morale, that's been decorating our hallways with seasonal decorations, has also started an intramural basketball league based actually here at Okemos Public Montessori, which started these last couple weekends. And this is a super fun opportunity for students to keep spirits high during the cold months. The Okemos Fun Squad also distributed supplies to teachers this month just because, which was very kind and appreciated. Some upcoming events include 7th grade camp, which is next week. Our counselors have been training, and today we met with the students. There is a difference this year in that because of COVID, the junior class, who is now counselors, never attended 7th grade camp. So there needed to be additional training and strategies about kind of preparing them for the position, having never been there at all. And some of that includes just being paired up with experienced senior counselors who were counselors last year and also attended 7th grade camp. But they do have that opportunity to go, even though they never went in 7th grade.
Those are the new bathrooms at the high school that you were talking about that are going to be open in a month.
Oh, perfect.
So I just wanted to show the community, that's the
Yes.
renovation. That's
Thank
an
you.
actual picture of the restrooms that will
We're
be,
very excited.
opening that our students have been without. So you guys
Yes, there
get the
was-
sneak peek.
For those of you who weren't aware, there were pipes burst in our CD hall bathrooms, and for a couple months, we have upper A, B, lower A, B, upper CD, lower CD. So we have no CD bathrooms currently, but coming early February, we're very excited for those, and that'll relieve passing time, and we will be very appreciative of that.
Sneak peek. Yep.
Yeah, thanks. I hadn't seen that actually. That's great. But the Chippewa staff have been doing a great job preparing the junior class for 7th grade camp, and working to accommodate those changes for this year. Also on the 7th is an adult-only winter gala hosted by the Okemos Athletic Boosters as a fundraiser for our sports and facilities. It will be 8 to 11 at the Okemos Event Center. And I believe tickets are still available, but are limited in capacity. So if you're interested in supporting our athletic department, there's that opportunity. And winter formal has been scheduled for the following day, the 8th of February. Typically, there's a lot less attendance at the winter dance compared to the homecoming dance. And so student council has been working to include more winter activities at the dance besides just dancing. So we'll update you on whether we can increase that attendance because it has been relatively pretty low to our fall dance. And that's all we have for you. Are there any questions? Yeah. Or comments?
Questions? Trustee Kavanaugh.
I had a couple questions for you guys. So I am basketball league. That's exciting. are there any other sports? Because this is something I would love. And so many kids
Yeah, so
play other sports, but then don't get a chance to play varsity or JV.
the basketball is the first program that started. The Okemos Fun Squad has expressed lots of interest in doing other sports. Right now, I think it's just for them. I'm not personally part of it, but I believe that it's just about getting space. So they're allowed here at OPM, just in the gym area. And yeah, there's lots of interest in starting other, in branching to other sports. But I think it really depends on where they're allowed to be in what space and how much time. I think there was also the most interest in basketball league, which I think there are like 4 teams right now, maybe 6, something along those lines. But yeah, they had their first tournament this weekend.
Great, I love it. Hopefully they keep doing it and adding more.
Yeah.
And then I had one other question about finals.
Mhm.
So I've brought up before, and we kind of talked about it, about finals, the possibility of moving finals to before break. And I'm just curious on how the two of you feel about that.
Actually, Miss Freeman right over here, it was teaching me last semester, and every day she does a poll on the board. When we walk into class, we just put our little attendance there, and it's a fun way of starting class with a question. And one question she had the day we got back from break was finals before or after break. And during my hour, personally, it was actually a unanimous vote before break in my class.
I would imagine.
I think, how many people, like 28
We have
people?
28 that class, and I have 31 in my other one, so that was,
How were they in your other one?
it was unanimous.
Also okay, so I think that kind of represents the general student opinion about it. Personally, I'm a strong advocate of putting them before break because it's a hard debate while I know that admin and just students, no one wants stress on break. So Power School gets shut down, so kids aren't too worried about it. They have to like record all their missing work before break and then try to get caught up before the end of the semester. And then some kids are stressed about, some students are stressed about finals coming up, so they do a lot of studying and stressed out. I think it would be better overall, definitely, to have finals before break to just get them over with. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Especially, with my brain, like I lose some information over 2 weeks. And like sometimes they try and stuff some extra stuff in before finals. So I definitely prefer to have it before break.
And I mean, teachers have definitely been doing the best they can, releasing, study guides whenever, before break for students who want to study in advance, and then just reviewing and getting everyone back into it after break. And I do know there are probably a couple students who like the time to study and relax before finals, but I do think that one class of mine, I was like, wow, everyone agrees with me. And that's not a random sample of the student body, but I do think it is representative.
And I do want to, thank you for that. I do want to interject that I know Assistant Superintendent Bailey's not just looking at when, but also looking at like, what do the finals look like and how are they implemented? So we think there's room for some reflection and growth in terms of no matter when they're given, what do they consist of? How long are they? What types of exams are we giving? Why are we giving them? Are there different ways to show understanding? So I know she's actively working on that with department chairs and high school.
Our final, some classes will final project, they work on for a couple weeks for the final, but I'd say the majority of classes have just a sit down 90-minute objective test, most of which are multiple choice. But yeah, I can see that being looked at, and I appreciate all your work on it.
Thank you. I hadn't thought about, several of my friends or my kids' friends ended up getting sick for finals week. And, as we all come back and get so many cooties right after break, that's just like an added bonus stress for kids.
For sure. Oh, yes, Trustee Phelps.
Real quick, thank you for letting us know about 7th grade camp. I didn't think about that. It's amazing and I'm sure we'll be dealing with this for years to come, just, effects of COVID that we didn't think about. So long lasting. So I'm glad to hear that they will get to go to 7th grade camp, long last.
They have that big it's worth noting that it's this grade of juniors and the next year's juniors. So I could see the biggest challenge in being next year for seventh grade camp, because that would be definitely some returning counselors who will be counselors this year. But besides that, probably 2/3 of counselors in general will have never been seventh grade counselors. That additional support from the chief law staff is important.
And I just had one other thing, and Penelope, I give you credit for this. Last year, you brought up the whole student council election issue, and you brought that to us. And I know that Principal Kemsley has been working on that, so I don't know if you're the right person or Superintendent Hood is, but when we have an update on what's going on with those student council elections, I would love to hear. Have you heard anything?
I have not really
Okay.
in that camp, vice president of the student body. It hasn't been brought to us. I'm assuming it's just an administration conversation, right?
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing how that's planned to be implemented going into next year.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay, or you're free to leave it also if you like.
Lots of them.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. At this time in the meeting, citizens have an opportunity to address the board regarding items of interest that may or may not be part of the evening's agenda. Citizens are required to limit comments to 3 minutes, except when the requirement is waived by the board president during the meeting. A designated timekeeper will communicate to the individual who is addressing the board at 3 minutes. The board highly values public comment and input. However, the board format is designed to facilitate the evening's agenda and therefore restricts board members from engaging in conversation with speakers or immediately responding to questions. Questions and concerns may be addressed by the board later in the agenda and may be assigned for follow-up by the board or superintendent at a later date. So we have a number of comments here. I mean, when I call your name, I'm going to ask that you come up to the podium. You can just over here. Yeah. Again, the blue, you gotta come to the podium and say your name and your address. So first up, we have Aaron Stockall. Trustee Burns is our parliamentarian, and I'll let you know, keeping time, okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Erin Stockall. I live at 4327 Manitou Drive in Okemos, Michigan, which is about a 7-minute walk from Edgewood, where my 1-year-old and 2-year-old are both enrolled. I just wanted to share my experience with the program, which has been that it's an amazing program. We did tour about 12 other daycares in the area before enrolling our kids at Edgewood, which both of them had a wait list for Edgewood, and we actually had to have our kids enrolled elsewhere first. We did find Edgewood is significantly cheaper than most other daycares in the area, over $100 cheaper per week. And as a parent, I could say instead of closing the daycare, I would like the board to consider other options to keeping it open. And that would include tuition increases for parents. I know as a parent, I would be willing to increase tuition in order to keep my kids at a daycare close to home where I know the quality of care is really good. Also, as a parent with my kids there for over a year, I had no idea the program was operating at such a large deficit. There's been no attempts at fundraising, which I find very concerning and frustrating, because we could have been doing something sooner to fix this and not be in this large deficit. And so I'd like to think about that. How can we keep it running in a fiscally responsible way by maybe increasing tuition, fundraising, looking at other funding, and looking at how to cut costs if we need to cut costs, but keeping the current program. You know, whether that's cutting the free snacks or the other thing I wanted to bring up, I know it was mentioned that there's a large wait list for Edgewood. I can say that when my son was in the infant room last year, there were 3 kids for almost 6 months in the classroom, even though there was a large wait list. So I would urge the board to look at, are we really running at capacity? Or are we saying there's a wait list and it's because it's a free wait list for where everyone signs up? And then we're never going back and revisiting it to make sure, yes, they're still interested so that we can keep our program full. So I think that's all I have to say. It's an amazing daycare. I really hope that we can figure out a way to keep it open and keep it fiscally responsible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Next up, we have Aviva Nassar.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Viva Nser. I am the mother of 4 children, 2 of which are at Cornell and 2 of which are part of the Edgewood Early Childhood Care Program. I've been thinking about what I want to say tonight. I have so much to say. I think I also submitted a letter that explained kind of the background. I want to share that when I was done with the NEST program with Delane, I even told Delane, I want to have another child just to use your program again. And I did. The Nest is the best program I've ever experienced, and we've lived on the east side of Michigan. We've lived outside of Michigan. I'm Canadian. My husband and I met in Kuwait. We've been in other parts of the world, and we're very familiar with what childcare could be and how awesome this program is. When the management spoke about the options and the financial issues, definitely, I know that. I'm also a management professor of Western Michigan University. I talk to this, I understand the bottom line, but you cannot speak to the value of a program as good as this. You really can't. And I tear up unexpectedly because even though my youngest is now 1 and I was able to get in and I've got another year, and please just keep it for another year. I'm very selfish this way. There are other parents around here that know they want more children and they have children on the way and they want to be part of a program from the beginning through. We're here in Okemos, even though I'm in Kalamazoo, because we chose Okemos Public Schools. That is the reason why we're in Okemos. I work in Kalamazoo. My husband works in Detroit. We travel back and forth. My parents are in Canada. My husband's parents are in Australia. I know we're Lebanese. We're complicated that way. We needed to find that community. And the community we found was at Okemos Public Schools. And because of the early childhood education program, we could have easily moved. We chose to continue. We live in Okemos. We pay those taxpayer dollars because it's worth it. And it starts from the very beginning to build those strong families. I live in the Wellington Estates location. A lot of soon to retiring families. Those homes are going to be filled with younger families that are looking for early childhood education programs. There are not many, especially when it starts with the infant program. When I found out I was pregnant, I told my mom, and then I told Delane. These wait lists are no joke. I implore you to think about this. Yes, financials are important, but there are so many other solutions, and getting rid of a program this important to so many that will stay with Okemos until the end. I'm not moving my older kids anymore. We're staying here. Is going to be a loss for the community. I really ask you to dig deeper than just financials, solving budgets, and go towards this great group of educators that are hard to find that combination. That's the value there. And I'm going to fight as much as I can. I'm willing to pay that extra money. Please consider the other options because this is just such an easy cop out. Thank you.
Next up, we have Marin Brunson.
Handwriting is terrible.
Mine too. I shouldn't be able to read it, but is it?
How's it going? So some really good points there. We were on that.
Please say your name and address, please.
Great idea. Mason Brunson, also an Okemos resident. So if you had to ask like how many of us live in Okemos as part of the program, I'd say most of us, honestly, right? We all live nearby. We all live in the neighborhoods. We were 60th on that wait list, right? So we did the same thing as others did. We went to other schools, other programs, just to wait and get into this one. I've got an 8-year-old, I've got a 3-year-old, I've got a 1-year-old. So the 1-year-old is the one that's really impacted. Also with Delane's program over there. We've been in a lot of different places. We're from Arkansas, right? So The kind of care that we've gotten, that we received through Edgewood, through these programs, it's nothing like anything we've ever been in Arkansas, Indiana to here. It is amazing. And it's because of these folks. So hearing that we might lose them, it's just as much of a disservice as I feel like losing the programs, to be honest. So I wouldn't just assume that just because we're losing that 1-year-old from the program, that we're going to not lose that 3-year-old who's going to go into GRSP, that 8-year-old who uses the after school program, right? Because what I'm thinking is we're just going to move all the way, right? So we're going to lose the dollars from all of those folks. I would also think about the impact of April 30th. That's crazy, right? Like we've been waitlisted for a year places. It is ridiculous to think that April 30th, we're going to have other options. We won't have other options. So we need to figure out what that looks like. We need a real plan and not just guesswork. I'm all for tuition raises as well, but I agree with the accountability piece. We've got to figure out how we got here. We didn't get here overnight. I agree with the fundraising thing. Hey, we would love to fundraise, right? We've done tons of things in past schools. That's an option for us that we haven't explored, and I feel like that's a disservice to us all. That's it. The other things I had were just like data things, right? So thinking about what the historic loss looked like, what kind of impact did we have having that 1-star rating, right? Like how much of an impact did that have on the budgets for this year? You know, we have the same thing as the other person pointed out. We have this long wait list, but our class right now just has 3 folks. When we started, it had just 3 infants in it. So have we been efficient with what we've been doing? I don't feel like we have been in a lot of classrooms. And maybe that's another accountability piece for the leadership team, figuring that piece out. But that's all I got. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Next up is Mikhail Mershak.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mikhail Mershak. I live at 1437 Sheboygan Avenue. I think that's River Downs. We try to not talk about the name of our neighborhood too much. Trustee Phelps, I think he's a sharp dresser because I also shop at Costco and have that exact same sweatshirt. In addition to that, so my wife's here. She's raised 4 kids through this program. All 4 of them had the superstar Delane. Let's just give her another hand. So 2 of my stepkids have gone through Okemos school. They're Leah's kids, daughters that are 15 and 18, and one's a rising star at Michigan State, crushing it in engineering, which thankfully she followed in her stepdad's footsteps and also was doing engineering. And she's killing it. And Mia's crushing it at the high school. And I have a 8-year-old and a 3-year-old, I'm sorry, 8-year-old and a 6-year-old at the Cornell Elementary. So none of my kids are being affected by this program at all. But with 2 of my bosses sitting right here, also lawyers, with Taylor and Amanda, I know that their kids are in the program. I know how impactful the kids, so my own experience, that impactful our kids were by the program, from anywhere from behavioral issues to education to learning how to share, how to get along with other people. As a math type of person, I kept looking at the numbers, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So I would like to have, and I hope the board is trying to crunch the numbers in some way as well. It just doesn't make any sense to me how it works out. The tuition has gone up. So for example, if you just take I think she mentioned 26 total students that are affected between 0 and 3, how it could possibly run at a $250,000 deficit makes no sense to me. So I'd like to have more clarity. Everyone says, oh, transparency data, but we've never seen any of this. And to say, oh, it's January, we operate at a $250,000 deficit because of these classrooms, absolutely makes no sense. If you take 26 students and you multiply it times, what do we come up, 350 a month? So let's just call that 1,400 a month. And then you multiply that times 12 months, that number comes out to $436,000 a year. That is revenue generated by the 0 to 3 program. I don't know how you could possibly say that 0 to 3 program is operating at $680,000, almost $700,000 to operate that daycare, because a lot of the data on the internet says it costs a fraction of that amount to open a daycare to 0 to 3, which would make no sense because we could collectively start our own daycare and just do 0 to 3. And they have grants for that. So in my mind, This is an example. We had an example when Cornell almost moved to Powell Road, which was a short-sighted, terrible idea. The community spoke up and said, don't do it. And magically they were able to figure it out. And I think this is the same situation here. We have a short-sighted plan that, by the way, impacts recruiting. You have growth happening in the community with new neighborhoods and new builds. You have more families moving in with the intention of growing our fabulous education. So to cut off a supply of daycare services in a situation where I've had so many young families call me and say, I don't know where to send my kid to daycare. Everywhere's got a wait list. I can't get in for 6 months. I don't understand comments like, we have lowered enrollment and we have not enough spaces. And I think you guys are all aware of that. So I think the numbers need to be more clear and everyone needs to be rethinking this. And maybe the leadership needs to be a little bit more involved in what's happening. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Next up, we have Elena Mapley.
Hi, my name is Alina Mapley. I actually live in Hazlet, but I am a teacher in Okemos. I have been teaching here since 2013. I am also a former president of our teachers union. There were just a few things that I wanted to say with regards to this very abrupt kind of way this all rolled out. I became a mom in 2021 and I started my son in the infant room when I returned to work for Okemos Public Schools. For a first-time mom, to know that my child, I get angry, I cry sometimes, so I apologize. To know that my child is being taken care of and being loved and nurtured in the infant room was a really big stress off of my shoulders. Auntie D was not only great for I'm sorry. She's not only great for my son, but she was helpful to me as a first-time mom who did not have family or friends with kids similar in age to me close by. When Arch moved to the ones room, he met Miss Jessica and that was his person. I could not I would drop him off and he would run away at 1 year old because he loved Miss Jessica so much. She wasn't the lead teacher, but she helped him learn how to walk because when he left Auntie D's room, he still wasn't walking yet and we were a little bit concerned. And she just helped him grow so much. When he entered Miss Mandy and Mr. Tom's room, I know we talk a lot about Auntie D, but Mr. Tom and Miss Mandy are so phenomenal for our kids. I often say that Mr. Tom is like Mr. Rogers. Like there's just something about him who he's wonderful and Miss Mandy is wonderful. It kind of feels really gross to me that the staff didn't seem to have been informed about a lot of this until right before the board meeting tonight. In the past, when staff has talked about the Okemos way, it was how collaboration and communication were done freely with all stakeholders. And now the Okemos way seems to be hiding things from stakeholders and hoping that last minute news will not allow enough time for people to ask questions. There was no transparency for administration for parents. I think all of us found out through word of mouth that this was even happening tonight. There's no thought to what a service like this is to employees who are able to have children close by. I know that I am not the only staff member who has a child at Okemos Public Schools. And I know that one of the few perks that we have to be here is to know that our kids are so well taken care of and so close by. There are some things in education that you can't put a price on, and childcare with highly qualified and caring staff in the district you live or work in is one of them. Central administration has a tendency to throw money at an issue or take money from something without thinking about how something is going to be implemented. I honestly have very little faith, and I think we kind of saw that tonight, that this has been fully thought through and that all avenues have been explored. Schools are not a business. Something that is part of the community and is provided through something like community ed should be reaching out to the community to bring them along with these decisions instead of doing things behind closed doors. Furthermore, there are a lot of districts around in Michigan who do offer childcare as part of community ed. It seems like a good place to start would be to reach out to other community ed programs to see how they are doing things.
We do have a lot of more comments, so I just want to.
Okay, am I at my 3 minutes?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Bethany Freeman.
Okay, so I too am an angry crier, so I will preface that ahead of time. So thank you for making me feel comfortable enough to do that. I am also a teacher in Okemos. I'm Bethany Freeman. I actually live in Mason, 766 North Every Road. But I did write a letter and I sent it, so I do believe that you guys have all of that. At least that's what I got in correspondence back. But after, you know, looking at my letter and then hearing all of the things that have been said, yep, there is so much more than what was written in that letter. I came back at 10 weeks postpartum, a nervous wreck, to teach, you know, everybody else's kids, and love everybody else's kids. And I trust my child with Auntie Delane and Auntie Liz and Auntie Kristen and Auntie Sarah, probably more than myself. My wife and I make jokes all the time about, you know, what do we do here? I'm like, I don't know, like, should we call Auntie Delane because she probably knows best. We would be at a loss without them. And to think that you're giving us 12 weeks to try to even come close to filling the void that their absence will leave is inexcusable to me. That we can't fill that void ever, truly, but 12 weeks is laughable, honestly. I'm also a coach in the district, so outside of teaching, I'm also giving even more in that aspect of myself to this district. So there's also that part of myself. But I would like to kind of use some words from an interview that you, Mr. Hood, spoke in 2019, where you said, people are sending us their kids, their babies. They want their future and all the doors open for them, and we take that very seriously. If that's the case, why did this not get more attention? Why did we not look at this earlier? If you take that so seriously, why are you giving me 12 weeks to figure out what to do about it? And I leave you with that. Thank you.
Next up, we have Carly Pulford.
Hi, my name is Carly Pulford. I live.
Carly, hold it just 1 second. Okay. Sorry, Carly, your time will start now.
Hi, my name is Carly Pulford. I live at 2124 College Road, and I am the program assistant in the coop for the 1-year-old classroom. I took today off work to celebrate my birthday. However, I still came to this meeting to represent my students, my families, and my associates. Mr. Hood, your intentions to close our early childhood program has come to the attention of both our staff, families we serve, and the only individuals unaware being those students we have bonded with this past school year. Let me start off by addressing your potential reasons to close our program. The first being the school budget, and the second to implement pre-K for all. In 2024, Mr. Hood, you took a 38% salary increase, jumping from 175 to 241, deeming you the highest paid superintendent in Ingham County. This is public information found on the Michigan Official Education Data Resource, also known as Michigan School Data, when comparing school districts within the website There are schools outperforming Okemos and pay their superintendents 150 to 200K. For example, Hazlet Public Schools, their superintendent makes 160K a year. When looking at statistics, 60% of Hazlet Public Schools students are proficient in English, language arts at the 3rd grade. Okemos is at 57. And when we look at 4-year graduation rates, Williamson, who pays their superintendent 158,000 a year, has a 94.19% 4-year graduation rate. Okemos is at 92.35%. This is all public information, and it appears our funds are going to the wrong cause. By 2027, the state of Michigan wants to implement pre-K for all. This information can be found on the state of Michigan's website. This is a wonderful idea, and it will help not only families, but the success of the student and their K-12 career. However, by closing the 1 through 2-year-old classrooms, you are shutting down a pipeline of students that will join the GSRP program that you would like to focus on at this time. Families depend on our program for a multitude of reasons, and Mr. Hood, your own children attended. Not only do we assist with childcare, but our students learn motor, social, emotional, and cognitive skills in our classrooms. Having a steady understanding of these skills prior to kindergarten allows these students to thrive in their K-12 career. And I believe this is what every school would want, correct? I believe you are making a huge mistake by closing down these programs. Not only does it affect our families currently enrolled, but you are also affecting your pipeline of incoming GSRP students, which you claim to be the moneymaker currently. And I hope you listen to the words of family and staff tonight and take into consideration of our thoughts, families, and future Okemos students. And thank you for giving me the time to speak today.
Thank you. We have Lucas Bowman.
Good evening. My name is Luke Bowman at 6744 English Oak Drive. I brought some props for my speech tonight, not expecting a full closure, but the sweetest girls that I have are also here tonight. And some of the sweetest pictures and artwork that they've done in Aunt Delaine's room are here as well. And this one here from the 4th of July. Not only am I happy that these girls got to go there, but I hope our unborn child gets to go see Aunt Delaine as well, who is going to be here in May. There's over 8,000 licensed daycares in the state of Michigan that are operating. The fact that since 2018 that this is now an issue, John, is unacceptable. This is not an issue of money from the parents because you raise us by $500 more a month. We're going to be on the top end of the pay scale. This is an operational excellence issue. It's simple. Meet the staffing ratios of the students to the teachers, advertise everywhere. There's not a shortage of, there is a shortage in the state, nationwide, statewide, countywide of openings. There's absolutely no reason to be closing the facility. In 2001 to 2002, during the height of COVID, in the state of Michigan alone, 203,000 working mothers had to leave the workforce to stay home with their children. In our household, based on the professions that we've chose, it'll be my wife that works for Ingham ISD, serving needy students who are behind academically. 60 students will be impacted by her staying home, which is unacceptable. I don't think Jason Melima would approve of this either. You have the option since 2018 to fix this. We have more appreciation for our staff than John does. We have given a ton to our staff. We bring in bagels, we bring in donuts, we bring in treats, we celebrate with them. I have not seen anything from the public administration's office to express our appreciation for them. And and everybody go home and Google Blippi because he's here. Mr. Tom will grow our children, their language and their skills when they get to that room, and the activities that Miss Mandy puts on to do the artwork, to bring in the families, to create a sense of community, excel there. We were first-time parents during COVID with Delane, who taught us how to sleep train, taught us about safe sleep, and made a community. This is an operational excellence issue. This is a leadership issue that you've had in your hands since 2018. That's been quiet. Now is not the time to shut this down. Now, with that said, I kindly ask a motion to be made that you extend the opening and operating for 1 year, that you give this parents 1 year before closing. It is a 9-month to 12-month wait list. So please pause for 5 minutes to make a motion to keep the building open for 1 year from the time that you tell parents it's closing.
Thank you. Next up, we have Courtney Bowman.
I'm Courtney Bowman. I also live at 6744 English Oak Drive. Yeah, so as my husband said, I am a speech pathologist for the ISD. We have 2 young children that are going through Edgewood right now. And as you can see, I have another one that is also, at least that was always my plan, right? That's the plan, to be going to Aunt Elaine's room because like other people have said, I kid you not, when we were family planning, one of the things that, we're thinking about is, do we have care for these children? Can I go back to work? And I'm not sure that I would have considered having another child had I known that I didn't have the great quality care available to me once I had the child and wanted to return back to work. So obviously, OKC is part of community education, right? So let's talk about community. OKC is a community of families in their most vulnerable times, in the trenches of raising young children. I know that was a long time ago for several of you. I think Jillian might be the only one that has a child, and I could be wrong, a child, in these younger years. But it's a really hard time for parents and families, and you take that away. And especially with many families who don't have a lot of support locally, a support system in the area, it's a disservice to the Okemos community in general. And it will have a trickle effect. We've heard from employees that actually work for Okemos who, what if they don't have, good quality care for their children? They're probably not going to be able to come back and serve your school. Just selecting childcare is one of the first most important decisions that you make as a parent. And you're choosing a place for the people of your child, who your children are going to be with every day, often more hours than they are with you. And that's not a decision that I think a lot of people take lightly. There's an absolute dire need for good quality early childhood education in this community. Frankly, if you were to close on your current, I would probably have to take a leave of absence, because already calling around, there will not be a good quality place that I will feel comfortable sending my infant to. I'll just end with this. The demand's there, and I think with the appropriate leadership and some operational changes, there's no reason that Okemos couldn't provide this service for families. And I feel like if you choose to go down this path, and choose this plan, just honestly, shame on you for not choosing to invest in your youngest learners, right? These are your future. Yeah, these young families are the future of your district. They're your baby wolves, right? They're your future wolf pack. And you have to invest from the beginning, because it starts at the beginning. I know with speech and language development, people have talked about Mr. Tom. Watching him expand utterances and build on these children's language is amazing. And, I guarantee if you ask, Miss Carolina, if children were ready,
you know, for her preschool program, the ones that came in for the GSRP program versus the ones that have been going through OKC, she would tell you the ones that have already been going through OKC were in a better position.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Rebecca Mercado Jones.
Hello, as you may know, I'm Rebecca Mercado Jones. I live at 1051 Nautical Drive in Okemos. I'm a parent of 3 children. One who is currently at OKC. The OKC staff and teachers have been absolutely vital to our community, providing care and support to countless children within the district, and as mentioned, many of yours. I am here today to strongly and wholeheartedly support the infant through 3-year-old program at Okemos Kids Club. The educators at Okemos Kids Club are dedicated, loving, and absolutely indispensable to our community. This program is one of the few that locally offers high-quality education to some of our youngest learners, as Courtney said. As parents, we can trust the OK staff to care for our children as they would care for their own children, while being deeply invested in the intellectual, the social, and emotional development of our kids. For new parents, there is nothing more assuring than knowing your newborn is in the safe, nurturing hands of Delane and her team. Every working parent understands the vulnerability of leaving their child for the very first time in someone else's care. And Delane and her team and all the people at OKC make us feel safe in dropping off our kids. We know that they're cared for and they're engaged in lessons and play. We cannot afford to lose this invaluable resource for our families. Okemos Kids Club is a cornerstone of our community. Removing it would be short-sighted, negligent, and it would disrupt the development of our children at a crucial age. I ask today to extend to the parents and the caregivers of this community the same transparency and proactive communication that was demonstrated earlier today with the transportation update email that was sent to families. We deserve the same level of notice, the same level of transparency, and we deserve the same considerations that were given to the rest of the parents in the district. Instead, we've been left in the dark about the seriousness of the proposed changes of the program, and the staff is equally in the dark as they just learned about these proposed changes today at 6 p.m. This lack of communication and this proposed timeline that all of us just found out just now is laughable, as the other parents said, and it undermines the principles of high-quality public education. In closing, I urge Superintendent Hood and the Board of Education to recognize the needs of this community. Please preserve the Okemos Kids Club as it is now and continue providing this vital resource to the community, to the children, and to these families. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Taylor Gast. Taylor Gast.
Good evening, Taylor Gast at 4520 Comanche in Okemos. When my wife and I were deciding where to live, neither of us had much experience in the Lansing area. We had jobs and we've been here for about a year. Education weighed near the top of the list as to what factors we were choosing. Education and community. Since we enrolled our children at Edgewood, of which we have 2, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, I have consistently spoken positively about the fact that the program is run by our school district. And I've always viewed it as a positive because we have smart, educated people tasked with making good decisions who are publicly accountable for how things are run there. It's incredibly disappointing to find out now, with no notice whatsoever, that potentially we're proposing to kick kick the kids out of the school with a few months' notice. It boggles my mind to hear that we had a well-run, meeting a bottom line program. And now we're looking at the bottom line and we're going to make a rash decision to just close without considering any alternatives, without considering both the financial and non-financial impacts. I think that this is not just a school issue. This is an entire Okemos issue. There will be people who, like myself and like others who've spoken to you guys, will decide just not to move here. I'm so disappointed in the lack of communication. I hope that whatever you decide to do moving forward, you build in a buffer period so that our children are not harmed by not having childcare, so that our communities and our local businesses are not without their valued employees because their parents are staying home instead, and that we explore alternatives. That's it.
Thank you. Next up, we have Amanda Donoshek.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Dernovshek. I live at 4206 Wabanego in Okemos. And I have an almost 2-year-old daughter that is at OKC. There's been a lot of emotion in this room tonight, and I think that it's coming from deep in all of our parent hearts because this is really important to us, having our children in this program. I can't even put into words how important it's been for my family and for, I know, other families. I'm not from Michigan originally. I came here with no other family members, but I've felt like I have home because I have OKC, and the teachers there supported me in becoming a mom, as I know they do with everyone else. Something that I think has been a theme in all of this is communication and transparency. I have heard rumblings about mishandling with money with the previous director. I didn't know it was this bad. I also didn't realize that we would come to a meeting and have this half-baked proposal that feels like it doesn't even see the families that it's impacting. And that makes me disappointed. And you can do better. You can do better. And we want to help and support that effort. We've been given no opportunity to give our input about this until now, when there's already a proposal to take away my daughter's safety and security and village of people that she knows. These people are her family too. And I can't even fathom taking her somewhere else, but that's not an option. I don't think this proposal tonight was well thought out. I don't think that it considered everybody's input and all the stakeholders. I feel like there needs to be better communication. The staff absolutely needs to have more transparency with what's going on. And overall, I don't think this proposal is a good idea. I appreciate the board members who have asked questions and said we need to dig deeper. And I just ask you to please dig deeper and please think about how this impacts us. From a availability standpoint too, I'll just say that whenever I found out I was pregnant, I was on waiting lists at daycares before I told my parents I was pregnant, because that's how important it is. There's a massive shortage. The fact that my first thought when I get the pregnancy test is, oh, I better start looking at daycares. That's difficult. You know, I'm a full-time working parent. So is my husband. We need to do that to have a comfortable life and to be in Okemos. We chose Okemos for the education, and making a quick rash decision like this does not give me a lot of hope for my daughter's future here. And I just beg you to please take a step back and think about it and think about how it's impacting. And I would love to talk to any of you or all of you and answer any questions you have to. I think all of us are here to support, and we want to figure out what we can do to have a better outcome. And tonight's proposal is not it.
Thank you. Next up, we have John Chen.
Hello, am I close enough? My name is John. I live in 1244 Harbor Cut. I am an Edgewood parent. Before our child was born, we visited all the daycare centers in Okemos, hated each one of them, and loved Edgewood the moment we walked through Delane's infant room. As we toured the rest of the facilities, we knew that this is the place for us. We could see right away that Edgewood was something special with its teachers and programming. Upon entering the building, we could see and feel the joy of the teachers and their love for our children in a way that we did not sense anywhere else. Our experience with our child in Edgewood has strengthened this belief. The teachers are wonderful, and they build strong relationships with the kids and the family. Edgewood is a second home to our kids. Ask anyone that has gone through the program. I lost it, shoot. Sorry. Edgewood is a second home to our kids. Ask anyone that has gone through the program, and they will tell you how special it is. It is very perplexing that the idea of closing Edgewood is even on the table. There's a long waiting list of families waiting for an opening to send their children through Edgewood. It certainly does not make sense to close a program that the community wants and the community needs. Instead of closing it, why not improve upon it? Ultimately, this is the board's decision, not John's. We know you care for the community, or else you would not be in the position as a board member. So please, hear the community's plea to keep Edgewood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Lindsay O'Brien.
Yep. My name is Lindsay O'Brien and I live at 4330 Hewlett Road. And this is one of the kids that's going to be impacted by this proposal. When I found out that we were pregnant, we also got on various wait lists. And I was ecstatic when we got the call that we were going to get into Edgewood. I was so anxious. And then when I got to know Delane and her team, I was instantly put at ease because I just felt so comfortable. I knew our kids were well taken care of. And I went to her team for advice because I trusted them more than I trusted myself. And this is going to be a huge loss for us. We also have a child who's 2.5 in Miss Mandy and Mr. Tom's room, and she just loves them so much. When we're at home, all of a sudden she'll be talking and she'll say, I can't wait to tell Mr. Tom and Miss Mandy this. And to have these kids separated and have her unable to go to the school is just going to be a huge loss for our family. So I really just urge you to reconsider and rethink this plan and come up with a better option, because this program means so much to our kids. And I cannot thank you teachers enough for everything that you've done. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick O'Brien.
Hi, I'm Pat O'Brien, Hewlett Road, with the young lady and the even younger lady, right there. Again, I am a dad. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 9-month-old at the school. And I'm going to avoid trying to echo a lot of the common threads here. They're very valuable, obviously, but I worked at Learning Care Group, which is they own Child Time, Tutor Time. It's like 8 brands. Exactly, corporate, right? Yeah, there you go. And I also actually I've gone to school a lot. I have a master's in education as well. So I was in the classroom. I taught high school Spanish. So you know a good school when you see one. This is one of them. And as I listen to all these stories, I think to myself, this is a huge opportunity for the district. If the issue is money, which again, it generally comes down to that. Just want to give you a couple things to think about. A lot of people moved here for the schools. I didn't. My wife liked the house. So here we are. And Pat O'Brien, went to Catholic schools. My parents did, my grandparents did. That's what we were gonna do. I was, went to Catholic schools around the area, went to Lansing Catholic. And I gotta be honest, we started Edgewood and I was like, oh, I like the families. I met Taylor, met Mandy and Delane and all these other folks. I was like, oh, they seem pretty cool. Nice people. And then we had our second child started and we started meeting more families. And one thing I really liked about Catholic schools was community. That was the biggest thing for me. And I, not having experience in public schools, I was like, I don't know, do they have community? I don't know. The original plan was just do what I did. But since we've been here, I gotta be honest, Edgewood was the hook that basically made me think, okay, this is hard for me to say, but they might be wolves and not cougars. And oof, that's really hard for me to say still, including moving to Okemos from East Lansing. So, but again, glad I'm here, but I attribute that to Edgewood. And that's a huge value. Having worked in corporate childcare and being an educator myself, huge value out of the community. And I think we would be remiss to we got a budget deficit, move to close. And now I understand you have hard decisions to make. I've been in a lot of your shoes before, but the one thing that I'm really good at, and I think a lot of people here are really good at, are solving problems and raising money. The amount of wrapping paper I sold at Catholic schools and peanuts and popcorn and everything, I learned to hustle things at an early age. And obviously that's kind of a joke, but we can do this. We really can do this. You got to ask the parents. We're here to help. And I know that's kind of a nebulous concept, but if you told me, Pat O'Brien, you got to raise $25,000 and we need to by this date, give me a number. We'll make it happen with the parents. We can do that if that's what it takes. And that's how much we care about, about this place. A couple other things I wanted to say. We talked about staffing levels, having worked in corporate childcare. You gotta meet your ratios, have the proper amount of kids in there. It's a very, I'm at 0 minutes already. Oh, that's okay. All right. Hey, we can do this. Here to help. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pat. Jillian Lambert.
Hello, I'm Jillian Lambert. I live at 4288 Arbor Drive. I am a Cornell parent of a 4th grader. I am also a 2-year-old parent. My child has been at Edgewood from birth to age 2 now. My other child went to school or preschool at the MSU Child Development Lab, which is also a fantastic program, which only has a 4-star rating, even though they have master levels teachers in their classroom. So let me remind you of that. And Okemos Kids Club was too, when I applied. And a star rating, it sounds like it's a temporary thing, and that should not be a reason for removing programming. As a former special education teacher, as well as a preschool that I worked in for 2.5 years, which was NINSE certified, this program is fantastic, and so are the staff. It is a disservice to people who do not have the credentials to be in the GSRP program, who are phenomenal educators, to be shoved and said, we're closing your program. If you have not been in their classrooms to see how fantastic Mr. Tom is with his language skills that he helps develop with his students, and Dee with the care and the compassion that she has for those infants, that is negligent to not see what they bring to this program. Also, if you have not gone and seen the programming that Mandy provides and the sense of community she has brought in that classroom, it is fantastic. I know for a fact that my child right now is developing relationships that they will continue to have with the children in their classroom as they move on to Cornell. I have been pushed around by this district with the wanting to move Cornell. I've been pushed around when you did not offer in-person learning for my student who was in kindergarten who had no idea how to use a computer. And you want to know how I made sure she learned how to read? Because of the relationships I had with the other parents at my daycare that she attended from the age 2 to 4. We all bonded together and got one of our educators to come in to our homes, and we did a pod, and that is how they learned. We are building a sense of community that will continue to follow these kids. My child will still speak with her friends about experiences they had in a 2-year-old room. So they are going to form friendships that will last forever. And to not have this offering is ridiculous. It is not thought out. You offer summer programming for school-age children. That list always fills up. The spots I can't even get in, always for the weeks I need as a parent in that program for my daughter who's in 4th grade. It's great to have one drop-off, I'll tell you that. But if you cannot get in for all the weeks you need, I have to find camps elsewhere. You should be expanding that program. You can move it to Cornell, you can move it to any other elementary in the district and have more classrooms and more offerings. Because oftentimes they're putting the grade 3 and 4 together in the same classroom and limiting it, I don't know, to whatever number they limit it to. It should be expanded. You can get the high schoolers who come and volunteer in the classrooms that my son, I go to random places, they're like, hi, Jamie, isn't that Jamie from Edgewood? Yes, it is. From younger kids in the program, as well as high school students who go and volunteer through this community service program that they offer. So my child is being impacted by the great Okemos community that I've grown to love. So please, you need to get the parents who are affected by this program through a survey. We are happy to provide creative outlets to come up with the money. I used to serve on a parent council at the MSU Child Development Lab, and we had a fundraiser every year, and our parent committee met every month. So I'd be happy to serve on such a committee.
Thank you. Jordan Baraney.
Hello, my name is Jordan Barney. I live at 4535 Seneca Drive here in Okemos, which is also a short walk away. And one of the reasons why we absolutely love Okemos Kids Club, it takes us about 5 minutes to walk there in the morning. I have a 1, 2, and newly 4-year-old that are enrolled in care at Okemos Kids Club. Excuse me, my thoughts are a little scrambled. Public speaking is not my strong suit. I'm from the area, but I moved away. Came back and selected Okemos on purpose for the school district, for the education. We had an accepted offer in a house in December of 2021. We called Okemos Kids Club and were put on the wait list. Expected that. We sent our kids to an in-home daycare in the interim. 2 years later, 2 years, we were called. And our son, there was a spot for our oldest son. He started in the 3s room. I was shocked when I got that call that he had a spot, but I was also shocked that they were immediately able to place my 2-year-old and my 1-year-old. Why are there wait lists when there are open spots? There's more money that can come in. There should not be open spots. And you've heard, all of us love Delane. All of us love Mr. Tom, Mandy, Carly, Miss Anator, who I'm just getting to know here. These are wonderful people, and it's just extremely alarming that they learned at 6 p.m. today that their jobs are being eliminated. It's incomprehensible. And as I've only, expanding on thoughts that have already been heard, but I think it's important. Luckily, it sounds like only my youngest will be impacted with the care. But in April, I work full time. What am I supposed to do with her? It's absolutely ridiculous. And a $300,000 deficit doesn't show up overnight. Where's the oversight? Where's the day-to-day? Who's looking at the financials? It doesn't happen overnight. So please, I beg you to ask for more data, ask for more records, look into what happened. We beg you, we beg you. And one option is not enough. Where's option B? Where's option C? Where's an option to at least grandfather in the children that are already in care? There is more that you can do. I printed off the standard operating procedures here today. Our value statements. Where's the integrity in this? Where's the innovation in this? It's lacking. It's lacking. And if this is how the superintendent chooses to run this program, what makes me want to stay? Because it doesn't. It doesn't. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Tony Guerra. Tony Guerra.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Shahada, of Lebanese origin, Lebanese American that lives here in the United States. I've been in the country for 25 years, and I grew up in about 6 different countries. Some of them ranged from communist Russia to Australia to Lebanon, Jordan, Tunisia, and they're definitely here in the United States. And we all agree that education is super important, and it comes in different shapes and forms. And we all kind of heard a lot of different things from different people here. You most of you guys are just listening to words. But each one of us here in this room probably were feeling the pain, the tear that dropped on people's cheeks and the experiences that they're going through. Now, there's a side of me that does not like to accept the victim mentality coming in to say, well, poor us, you guys need to look into this. And the reason why I say this is, if there's one thing this country has taught me is, we come with rights and responsibilities. Our responsibility is to look after our home, look after our kids, work, pay our taxes, which kind of brings me to one of my first points. I believe we're all paying taxes here. And part of those taxes, if I'm not mistaken, there's a huge chunk that goes towards the school district. So I don't know if anyone else has mentioned this, but I'd like to understand, are my taxes applying in this case, or are they just kind of, not being included into this calculation? We all agree there's a huge issue with the numbers. We got to understand where the numbers are coming from. Then on top of that, we also pay for this time. So we're not going in and just dropping off our kids and asking for you guys to just kind of do us a favor. We are paying for the experience that we're putting in there. And I hate to put it this way, because I guess sometimes you need to kind of think about it. I'm a visual person. Someone else may like to read things. So it's always good to understand. And by the way, I didn't state my address, 4645 Wellington Drive. I come with 4 kids. This is our youngest, Luca. And again, Miss Liz's and Miss D's class with amazing support staff that are there. We also have a 3-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old that were not part of that program. You don't owe me to put this in. You are responsible for that. And I have some questions that I would like to get answered, because I know you guys cannot respond right now, but I'm going to just put them out there just for the sake of public record. And just for FYI, I do work for a government agency, so I understand where you guys are. And many times I was put in a position where I have to put in a proposal such as the one that we heard. And to me, it was so underwhelming to listen to that, because there was, first of all, I didn't understand where it came from. What was the clean justification? What were the actual numbers that justified that? If I were to put this in front of my mayor, I would be kicked out in less than 60 seconds, just to kind of be like, this doesn't make sense. Go do your homework and then come back in. So anyway, with that said, I really think this is a chance for you guys to, and thank you, I'll try to make it quick, show us your leadership and show us your problem-solving skills. I do have a handicap, just FYI. Definitely think about this as a challenge. If you guys are just saying this is the best that you can come up with, then I do question your leadership, Mr. Hood, and the board here as a decision-making board. So please definitely look at that. I don't know why you're making us come here and beg for our right in a certain way, where the schooling should be part of this. And especially, again, going back to my earlier point that we're paying for this. I hope that you're noting our questions. I just do want to ask whether this decision was made based on an internal decision or external consulting, if there was any external consulting that played into this, because that plays into how well they understand the problem at hand and how well they're making this decision, and who were the group of people that decided this. So is it you, Mr. Hood, along with some others out there, or were there others? The other thing I want to point out is that over the past year, even though the school has been absolutely amazing, and we can attest to that, all of us can say this, we have seen some signs of decline. And I say this with the utmost respect and love for everyone, not because of the staff, but we've seen some public spaces that have been kind of reduced. Very important elements, just real quickly. We've seen some staff that have left their positions because of this. I can give you an example of someone in the 1-year-old class that ended up leaving for multiple different reasons, but one of which she couldn't keep up with some of the things based on what I understood.
Please wrap up your comments.
Sounds good. We were very surprised about the timing. I would say this is something that has to be solved in multiple different ways, even going as far as trying to see other ways of financing. I know we've gracefully offered to fundraise. We don't need to fundraise. You guys need to come up with the ideas and solutions and then come back begging us to be able to help you figure this out, and not vice versa. I'm not begging for anything. I'm asking for my right. I want the school figured out. You guys do your homework and then come back to me and tell me what to do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is there, Thank you, thank you. Is anyone online? Excuse me. No? No. Okay, no one online. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have superintendent reports and requests. Superintendent Hood.
Right, thank you. I'll keep it short because I know we have another more agenda to do. So the board, let's see here. Chrisman Company's forecasting the bid pack 8 presentation to bring forth approved bids to the board regarding our high school music room remodel. They'd like to use the same process established in the past with a little tweak to it this time. They're going to come on 2/10 to present the bid pack 8 results and want to get you that information the morning of the 10th. They're currently vetting bids up through that morning. They want to bring to you the bids to present on the 10th at 9 a.m. and then wait for you to take action until the 24th. So you would get the information on bid pack 8 just prior to the board meeting, but then you wouldn't have to officially approve until the 24th. And again, we're doing that to keep the timelines in reach for the summer work. Okay. It's just forecasting that for our trustees. Our district has engaged our behavioral threat assessment teams along with our counselors and social workers in the next step of the process of behavioral threat assessment. We're reviewing our suicide risk assessment, making sure that our practices in terms of assessing student mental health risk is a model for others. Dr. Coggins continues to support that work, and that is funded by our state safety and security mental health grant. We'll be bringing to the board the formerly prohibited subjects that we've negotiated between the administration and the OEA. So we will do a closed session at the next meeting to discuss that and then bring forward that publicly. Those were all negotiated hand in hand collaboratively with the OEA. So Director Martinez will help lead the board through that. And then we'll have to vote on those used to be policies. And as you'll recall, we didn't do policies because now they can be included in the teacher's contract. So those will be coming just for some contractual updates. There is a new regulation from the legislature regarding our calendars. So any break that attaches to the ISD's common calendar will need a waiver, is our understanding. So in December, ISD Superintendent Malama rolled this out to the districts that there's another step needed with calendar approval. So what that means is we have a common winter break and a common spring break. It's on the county calendar. If we attach any breaks to the end of those, beginning or end of those, we need to apply a waiver because we're now altering the common calendar just for Okemos. So there'll be a number of districts that applies to. We've typically had the 2 days off before spring break that's on the common calendar. So we've had that Thursday, Friday, and then that whole next week. So we need to apply for that Thursday and Friday to be approved. The reasoning for this is MDE is really trying to look at educational opportunities across districts for students. So for example, we have the Thursday, Friday off, but our students that go to the Career Center in Mason might be on a different calendar because they may have school those days. So I think that's the intent behind it. The idea is all the districts will provide that information to the ISD. And we think the ISD superintendent is charged with either he approves it or he submits it to the state for approval. We're figuring out the process because we've never done it before. So in summary, we want to get to the next year's calendar for our parents and community and staff members ready, but we're not going to know whether those 2 days before spring break are approved. We're hearing until April or May. Yeah. So that's a change again, doing a change at the legislative level that we have to implement. So we don't want to upset our families and staff. We have worked collaboratively with the OEA to come up with what we think is a great calendar, mimics this calendar, this year's calendar closely. And we'll have to work through with them if we want to publish a tentative calendar before those waivers are approved, we could do that. My fear is we publish the tentative calendar, people make spring break plans for that Thursday and Friday to be off, and then our waiver doesn't get approved. And now we got a problem with Thursday and Friday. So we'll communicate that out to the community and do the best we can to navigate that. Okay.
Questions for Superintendent Hood? Reading his reports. Okay. We'll now move into board reports and requests. I'll start by acknowledging correspondence. Jennifer Muffett contacted us concerning a facility use conflict. Ami Van Antwerp with an invite to the Okemos Athletics Boosters Gala, like our high school student shared earlier. Kendra Charovali requesting the board's commitment to safe and supportive schools for all students. Madison Holtz requesting a form. Lori Mazzullo and OEA leadership expressing appreciation for early cold day notification. Dana Cogswell concerning ICE policy. And Doctors Viva Nasser, Tony Hera, Melissa Vachon, Matt Mayville, Matt and Amanda Dershevik, Jonathan and Cora Walby, Marissa Hoop, Emily Edgar, John Chen, Kelsey Ellis, Catherine Garish, Bethany and Kara Freeman, Carly Pulford, Taylor Gast, and Dorian Jones expressing support for the Edgewood Learning Center and childcare programming. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, other board reports or requests? Trustee Doxy.
No request, just a report. I just want to share that last Wednesday, I attended the Ingham County School Election Coordinating Committee meeting. And it was basically all the local school district secretaries went to sign the respective school plan. And it just spelled out like secretary's responsibility, our responsibility as a district when holding our election. So I just wanted the board to know that.
Thank you. Trustee Kavanaugh.
Yes, so I just wanted to give a report. We had our start times informational session with other districts last Thursday. We had some of our own members there. We also had representation from Mason, Hazlet, Dansville, and East Lansing. We had a great discussion on start times and kind of getting the ball rolling beyond our district and see if we can get some cooperation there or coordinate, maybe create a community or a committee to work within that group. So we will be following up with them.
Fantastic. Do you want to share about this upcoming Tuesday's event?
Oh, yeah. And tomorrow we have our Raising Resilient Wolves, that we were called, at Kanawha Auditorium at 7 p.m. We will have somebody who will be speaking about sleep, nutrition, and mental health and how that all ties in together. And people are welcome to bring their families. Kids are there. There'll be snacks. And I think it's scheduled for about an hour and a half. So it's not it's a quick one.
Kanawha Auditorium at 7. Other reports or requests? Trustee.
Oh, I just wanted to share that this past weekend, Okemos archery team, our archery team hosted tournament and 576 students participated from 26 different schools, including 100 of our own Okemos kids. And we have another one coming up in February 21st and 22nd. The turnout was really great, and it's a really great opportunity for the students who might not be keen about joining teams like basketball or football or haven't had that opportunity. Really great opportunity here.
Thank you. Other reports or requests? Trustee Phil.
Just one thing, and I know we talked about this during executive committee, but we need to schedule our board retreat. And I just wanted to follow up with that to make sure, Superintendent Hood, if you could follow up with Executive Assistant Walwork. I know we talked about gathering dates and surveying board members. So coming attractions to board members on that. I think we're looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, Trustee Buffett, Trustee Toxie, I thought we talked about end of July-ish time frame. So we're going to kind of share some dates, and then if you could respond to that so we can get that scheduled, that would be amazing.
Great.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Okay, other reports or requests? Trustee Shrestha.
I wanted to go back and loop back regarding the letter we received. I want to see and what Okemos Public Schools will be doing regarding, there's been a lot of fear and concerns from immigrant families. So I really want to make sure we as school district and board are also taking steps to ensure those families.
May I address that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so thank you, trustee Shrestha for that. So we are working on developing communication out to our families in regards to, we have a board policy regarding cooperation with law enforcement and under what circumstances we'll cooperate and how. We have also consulted our truant attorneys to get advice on the latest federal changes with executive orders. They're really telling us to pause and let them get us the facts, so we're not responding to emotion in terms of what people think, federal law is or what the impact of executive orders. So they have sent to us some recommendations for how we would implement our board policy in terms of checking for warrants, when we do allow and don't allow law enforcement on campus, what information we ask for or don't ask for from families, what's protected under FERPA and what's considered directory information. So you be very specific with families on what we ask or don't ask. For example, not asking families their immigration status. There is federal law that says that we have to provide free and appropriate education for students regardless of their immigration status. So again, that doesn't concern us in terms of, we're going to meet the needs of all kids. And we want to certainly protect the sanctity of the classroom in terms of making sure kids aren't getting yanked out of classes. So you can expect me sharing with the executive committee a draft of the thinking. I do also want to review with the board policy committee that information. But what we expect to do is come out with a parent letter and then a checklist for staff to make sure certain steps are met before we would allow access to children.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Trustee Shrestha, go ahead.
I don't know whether this is a place or a time for this, but I just wanted to take a second to thank all the families and staff who came here tonight to advocate for the program, because we all know how important early childhood education and care is. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay, thank you. So we now have some action items, and within the action items, there's a consent agenda to expedite the business of the board, which groups a number of items together to deal with by one action of the board. However, items in the consent agenda may be extracted by individual board members' requests for further discussion or clarification. So with the consent agenda, can I have a motion, please?
Move that the board approve items 1 and 2 for immediate implementation and appropriate action. Item 1, approval of the minutes of the special meeting of January 6, 2025. And item 2, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 13, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by trustee Doxy, seconded by trustee Burns. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. We also have other action items. First up is bus purchases. Superintendent Hood.
So Transportation Director Karpinski was here last time regarding the purchase of 2 buses. That's funded by our bond. And that would be not to exceed $276,624. Again, using a cooperative bidding site we've used before to purchase the buses.
And if I'm correct, that was getting the like last year, the current price and using the same funds that would be correct. Just basically lock in the prices.
Locking in the prices and with the lag and ordering times to do that and order those 2 before prices go up again.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please?
Board awards the purchase of 2 buses to the Holland Bus Company not to exceed $376,624 and to be funded through 2022 bond.
May I have a second?
Support.
Moved by trustee Wynn, supported by trustee Kavanaugh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Next up, we have a action item about the 2024-25 amended budget.
Yep, and Executive Director Lentz came in December to give the periodically updated proposed budget. Budget can be amended a few times during the year, so this is a budget amendment for 24-25.
May I have a motion, please?
Gotta make
After
a motion first. I move that the board approve the amended 2024-2025 budget.
Okay, moved by trustee Phelps, supported by trustee Kavanaugh. And this does require a roll call vote. Secretary Doxy?
Tom Buffett,
Yes.
Jason Burns,
Yes.
Katie Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Andy Phelps.
Yes.
Laney Schroeder,
Yes.
Jillian Wynn,
Yes.
and I am a yes.
Thank you. We also have a OHS new course recommendation. Superintendent Hood?
Yeah, Assistant Superintendent brought this forth at the last meeting for the new course at the high school. We did update the board to clarify in the yellow sheets, it's an 11th and 12th grade English course offering in sports literature.
Following high school course to be offered beginning with the 2025-26 school year, sports literature, senior English elective. I don't know if you need to add junior in there, because 12 and 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Support.
Okay, moved by trustee Wynn, supported by trustee Phelps. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
So it's 6 in favor and 1 no.
Yep.
Okay. Motion passes. Next up is donation acceptance.
Yeah, new board policy on us accepting donations. So we've established that any donation that is equal to or in excess of something that would meet the bid limit that we'd have to go up for a public bid on is kind of our threshold for making sure that the board has some oversight of donations. So this donation, this donor requested to be anonymous, which we try to respect. And bringing a $35,000 donation, which is earmarked to support youth action research, some student scholarships and suicide prevention initiatives. Trustee Dawson.
Yes, I have a question. How will we know, obviously the donor, to specify like what the funding should be used for, but how will the board be informed of the decision that is actually made on the use of this money? And like, what's the criteria? I'm just not familiar with like something this specific and moving forward.
So, great question. So in this case, I have worked personally with the donor to help meet a need so it doesn't hit the general fund budget in terms of a cooperative research study with MSU in regards to some of our equity practices. And we've established a budget together to help make sure that relationship can happen between MSU. So we'd be happy to account for that. As well as some scholarships that are offered through Okemos High School. We saw a need to be met that was a little outside our current scholarship offerings that we do at like awards nights. So knowing that need wanted to be met and we didn't have someone to fund it, the donor graciously stepped up to fund that. So that's an ongoing donation. And then the suicide prevention was again, the donor recognized the impacts of the recent loss we had in the district and wanting to make sure that funding with training for teachers wasn't an obstacle. So threw in some money for that so we can make sure that our staff have the best approach they can to suicide prevention. So in this case, it was a very close working relationship with me to help fund some already identified district needs. And I'd be happy to provide that accounting anonymously to the board as those expenditures come in.
Yeah.
Other questions? Trustee Shasta?
So you stated for this program, Youth Research, Action Research, MSU will be involved. Is MSU receiving portion of this 35,000? And also, is this one-time donation?
So yes, MSU is receiving a portion of that to help offset the costs for their staff to work with our staff. I don't know if, I don't want to assume that it'll be renewed. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have a second question. Can you give us an idea when we can expect the expenditure, oversight, or like the expenditure reports? Because I want to make sure we have a clear picture when regarding accountability and everything else.
Let me talk to Executive Director Lentz, seeing when that might naturally flow with our other updates, so I can get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion, please?
I move that the board accept the generous donation of $35,000 by an anonymous donor to support youth action research, scholarships, and suicide prevention.
Moved by trustee Doxey, supported by trustee Nguyen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Next up, we have some discussion items. The first one being the Montessori School of Choice openings.
So this is the time of year when we bring Montessori School of Choice openings to our trustees for approval. It falls outside of other school of choice openings because we like to align it when Montessori's are doing their enrollment. And that doesn't align with our normal school of choice opening kind of schedule. So our Montessori is just concluding looking at confirming enrollments for next school year with our pre-K 4. So these numbers could possibly be tweaked a little bit by next time when you vote on them. So you're not going to vote on it tonight. We're going to finalize and bring forth those numbers to you. So for school of choice, it's important to recognize that our Montessori program has become a Okemos program. And while it used to be significantly school of choice, it is not any longer. So you're going to see very few, if any, openings in the pre-K 4 for school of choice openings. Remember, if we advertise an opening, we have to fill it if there's a qualified applicant. We can fill more openings than are posted. We can't fill fewer. Okay. I can tell you in talking with Principal Sundin that our pre-K 4 program is filled almost entirely by Okemos residents. So you'll see listed on there for school of choice is zeros right now. We believe we might have up to 2 or 3 older school of choice siblings that want their younger siblings to be able to come in, and school of choice does allow for that. So you might see up to 3 potential openings at the kindergarten level next time you see this. But we're not recommending any openings in 1, 2, 3, or 4. We do have more opportunity in our 5, 6 and our 7, 8 program. We tend to have, every time there's a transition, we tend to lose kids to the traditional program. And we have 8 openings listed for the 5, 6 school and 10 listed for the 7, 8 Montessori. The caveat there is you have to have prior Montessori experience to get into the program. Again, at that age, if you're coming in and you don't have that prior experience, it really can compromise the integrity of the program. So a trustee had inquired, why do you think numbers are going down at the 5, 6, 7, 8? Our teachers have done some surveys, both formal and informal, of students. And we see in the 5, 6 and the 7, 8, really 2 themes. One is their friends are leaving, so they leave with their friends. Or 2, parents are deciding, we want to try traditional out before you get to the high school when credits count. So let's try the traditional before you get to high school, so it's not such a culture shock right when your GPA starts counting. So those are really the 2 major reasons that we've heard from students and parents in terms of 7, 8. Montessori's had a controlled growth model, which means we don't accept more kids than we have seats because it's a specialized program. The good news is we're filling those seats with Okemos kids, which is making our other elementaries smaller. If we were to send all the kids back to their home schools, our elementaries they're already bursting at the seams. I'm not sure we could even house them. So we don't really want to capture a lot of school of choice applications for the pre-K 4 program because it's going to be a no for them. There's not room. And we want to make sure our residents can have first dibs at that program.
Questions, trustee Nguyen?
I know we said it is advertised, the spots in the Lansing State Journal.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the local Montessori schools, I believe they end like at 6th grade. So I was wondering if we have like any partnerships where we, work with them to help advertise our spots for the 7th.
I don't know. Let me ask that question. Thank you.
Trustee Doxy.
Yes, Superintendent Hood, I thought I just heard you say that Montessori experience is required.
Yes.
Well, the last bullet says initially 1 through 8 grades, Montessori experience may be required. So
So we
either
do
it is-
require it 5 through 8th, pre-K through 4th, we do not.
Then I would ask that we modify and
Sure, I
make
can do
it
that.
clear when it
Yep.
is required.
Yep.
And do we allow, shadowing at the school? So if there are families interested, as trustee Wynn mentioned, like coming from other, Montessori programs, do we allow families to come and do a shadow to see what our programs are?
Yeah,
doing that
we have done school tours. We've not done shadows, with the caveat that the shadows became distracting to the education of the kids that were there. Because we had so many people that wanted to tour and shadow that we couldn't, it was becoming a burden on regular classroom instruction. So, yeah, so we have not done that. We have not done that.
Can you share more on the tour? So like, is
Yeah.
that just like a scheduled time and families who are interested, they all come at the same time? Like, what is that process? What does that look like?
I believe, Principal Sunding just revised hers with some, I think our students made a instructional video on the Montessori, but let me check before I misspeak about that and I'll get back to you on that.
I think that
Yeah.
will be helpful as we,
Yeah.
look to advertising our programs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's kind of like a shadow question, but slightly different. I know that we have like a Canelo information night and a triple information night for our current Montessori students to try to give them information about if they want to move up. I was wondering and would like to suggest if we could have an information night at each of those schools respectively that would welcome all these Montessori kids from the other schools to come one night. So that wouldn't be a shadow situation. It would require staff to come in one extra night to help give that information. But it's something that I already do for our students. So if we do have open spots, it seems like it would be nice
Sure.
to do that for the community as well.
Thanks for that idea.
Yeah, and I was just wondering, can we think about advertising besides Lansing State Journal? Because I know like when I last time tried to look, I had to pay. So I don't know how many families are we truly reaching, or do we
Yeah.
collect that data? How effective that tool
So I
is?
know we're required to advertise in a local newspaper, so that one is required.
Mhm. But besides
Yeah,
that,
besides that, I don't know other media, like if you have ideas on where we could advertise, we certainly could do that. I just don't know where that would be. We do it on our website and, yeah.
I was just along those lines, just thinking, just using our social media
Yeah.
outside of the website, just
Exactly.
whatever social media, and obviously our communications team can help,
Work
you
on
know,
that,
with
yeah,
that.
for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
yeah, I was thinking like similar to Trustee Doxy. We could probably use kindergarten roundup, blast out or those mediums.
And one frustration parents had when we were doing that, when we were blasting that out for our pre-K 4 is they came and there's no openings. So they're like, why do you keep advertising this? And why do you blast this out when it's filled with residents? So we want to be just careful of that too. Yeah.
I think-
Certainly at the 5-8, we can.
Yeah,
target.
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Trustee Burns?
Yeah, just how successful have we been at filling spots this way before through schools of choice?
At the 5, 6, 7, 8, not very successful. At the lower, very successful. Yep.
Trustee Wynn?
I just would like to make a suggestion, if we can move those information nights for our students earlier in the year. We had one canceled because of one of our cold days, which then made it that the requirement to choose was actually before they'll ever have information night. So I think if we can move those to be earlier in the year so that students and parents can help make those decisions by the deadlines, I think that would be helpful. And again, I'm talking specifically for 5-8.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Okay, next up, we have a discussion item about the strategic planning process. Just helps want to give a little background to that? Well, I can do it.
No, I mean, sure. So we talked about, especially for the new members, so you're aware at our last retreat, this past October, September. We made the decision to kind of move forward with updating our strategic plan, which was out of date. This past December, after Trustee Buffett, Trustee Lynn and myself, we met with MASB to go over a proposal to discuss kind of their approach and how we would approach strategic planning going forward. We approved a contract with MASB to start that process. So this is kind of our first chance to kind of make sure that everyone's, especially the new members, have looked at that contract of how that process is going to work, as well as kind of start the process planning for the next meeting, which I understand is planned to be a work session. So we can meet with forgive me, I don't know.
Debbie Stair.
Not Debbie, the other person's the lead.
Kimberly Rohr.
Yeah, so our Debbie Stair and
Kimberly.
Debbie I knew, but she was apparently going to be kind of, my understanding is kind of be the support.
They'll both be here on February 10th.
Correct, to kind of go over our portion as a board to kind of start the process of strategic planning. So correct me if I'm wrong, I think that gives at least a little bit of.
No, that's great. Just to add to that. So Debbie and Kimberly from MASB will be at our meeting on the 10th to do the kind of board input part of the strategic planning process. And we thought it best just for everyone, especially new members who had never seen this proposal and process before, to have a chance to see it ahead of time. So one thing is just to see if there's kind of questions that we can answer, or at least relay back to Debbie and Kimberly before they come on the 10th. That's one thing. The second thing is to provide Superintendent Hood some input and discuss ideas for selecting stakeholders for the different focus groups. That's another thing. And then the third thing is the timeline that we have. If we're going to have a new plan in place at our May 19th board meeting, which is kind of an ambitious goal, but that's our goal, then we need to have the all-day retreat in April. And there's 2 dates that they are free. And I've already heard from one trustee that doesn't work for them. So this will be a high, we'll see. We'll know when we get there, but those are the 3 things. So I first want to start by seeing if there's questions about the proposal that we can either answer or relay. Trustee Doxey?
I have questions, not sure if you'll have answers tonight, but certainly you can relay back to MASB. Well, one, so the $11,000 expense associated with this, did we already have this built into our budget? That would be for superintendent.
That was not built into the budget, but we paid it. Yeah.
Okay. We previously discussed as a board having one strategic plan, so incorporating our DEI plan into our strategic plan. That's not necessarily addressed in the proposal, so I want to know if MASB would consider that additional work, and if so, would that be additional cost? And in terms of the stakeholder group, the proposal referenced 6 in-person focus group sessions and 1 virtual session. I just want to make sure that we consider being flexible with our offering for focus groups so that we remove any barriers for stakeholder participation. So that we're offering evening sessions versus during the middle of the day, where that would hinder participation from working families. And I also want to make sure that we are looking at diverse group of representatives from our community and parent group, as well as our staff. So traditional and Montessori, our seasoned staff, our newer staff, like all of that. Those are my initial reflections to the plan.
So some of that has to do with the stakeholder selection. So I just want to kind of put that over here for a minute when we kind of circle back to that. In terms of the stakeholder focus groups being at different times, for sure. they also offered at no addition, you started directly with the DEI work, and that was actually very clear. Trustee Phelps can add into this, and Assistant Superintendent Bailey was part of those conversations too, but that was really important to us, so that we not emerge from this with two different plans and that work is just integrated. So I think that'll be kind of paid attention to throughout, is one piece. And the other piece is that they offered as another focus group that's actually not in their proposal, but at no additional charge. They asked if there's other district-wide groups that they might do focus groups with. And the two that we thought of at that moment, and maybe there's others, were the district parent council as one group, and the district, the DEI advisory committee as the second group. So it'd be just another way to tap into some of the thinking of that group. But just to be super clear from the very beginning, the idea of emerging from this with one plan was really important. So.
Going back to the stakeholders, I really appreciate the different ways they're trying to gather data, but also the stakeholders. The district policy or district parent council and DEI committee members, I appreciate the thought, but they also have a space to have their voices heard already. Can we explore beyond the same group of people or tapping into the same group of people? So we actually hear maybe there are other families or staff who are interested, but never had the opportunity.
So that again gets into the stakeholder selection process, and we can kind of go there. And maybe we should. I just want to see if there's any other questions about what's in there, because that was the other thing we want to talk about as a whole, as a board at this meeting, was just exactly what you mentioned. So questions about this, Trustee Nguyen and then Trustee Kavanaugh?
Oh, go ahead, sure.
I was gonna say, I wasn't clear from like the pre-planning stage. Did they look at the previous strategic plan and like evaluate how we've done since we had that one? Is that like part of the pre-evaluation? And then also like, are they very familiar with that already? Like, did they do the same process for us before?
They did not do the process for us before. Before that was an administrative led process, and there was an external consultant.
Correct.
But part of the rationale that came up with the retreat actually to hiring MASB to facilitate the process, so that wasn't such a big lift for our administrative team, that we could do it there. And I forgot the other.
It was just that, do they, in the pre-planning stage, do they look at the previous strategic plan and kind of how we did, so we can have like a benchmark of how we did with that and where we need to go as part of the bigger picture?
Trustee Phillips, feel free to add in. I would say that's kind of our work, honestly, to bring that thinking and that critical lens from the current strategic plan forward. Certainly we had some conversations about that, but it's not, that's not part of their work to like evaluate it and figure that out.
Yeah, I would agree. My understanding is their role is now forward, to give us a planning going forward. It's kind of, I think, us and all the stakeholders' responsibility to look at kind of where we've been in the past, where we do well, where we can improve, and how we want to, move forward as a district. That's what I would say.
And our current 5 areas, again, are organizational capacity, social emotional learning, instruction and learning, facilities, and which one am I forgetting? And equity. So, yep. And equity is kind of built into all of those. So, we really evolved in our thinking of equity as separate to ingrained within all of those. So.
I was just, the April dates you're talking about, were those shared? Did I miss that?
Yellow
In the
sheets.
yellow sheets, but.
Oh,
And we'll get it. So, any other just clarifying questions before we move this?
I have one. So, what would be the duration of this? I may have missed that in here, but would it be for 4 years?
Of the plan itself?
Yeah, so it'd be like 25, 26 through 28, 29.
So historically,
4 or 5 years.
typically it's 4 or 5 years. I think that,
I think that's something would be part of the duration of it, how, it might depend on what our goals are and how long it's going to take to achieve them.
They didn't come in saying that this is just for a 4-year plan or 5-year plan. So that could be, I'm sure that they would be flexible. Right? That.
Sure.
The last plan, the current plan that Okemos had was a 4-year plan. My understanding is it was approved a week before we closed schools for COVID.
Yeah.
So hence where we are. And
administratively, again, we're looking for the depth and not necessarily breadth. Well, our last strategic plan has been great. There's so many goals and they're so ambiguous. We would really like to see a really fine tuning of, when we say social emotional learning, that can mean a lot of things. So can we identify what we're gonna get in the next 4 years of social emotional learning? So then we're not whack-a-moling every social emotional initiative that comes up. So we've done some really good things with the plan, the current plan, like our facility dogs. Great social emotional learning, our first aid mental health. Great. We've incorporated the grants to have outside counseling at the high school. So we've done some really good things. We just want to make sure that those things are tangible and clear so the board can hold us to them.
Great. Other comments, questions on the proposal itself? So stakeholder selection, and I appreciate the comments from Trustee Doxy and Trustee Shrestha on that comment. So yes, so I think this is a great chance to give ideas for how to do that. We both, I think, Superintendent in our conversations about it recognizes that we don't want the usual suspects to come and people be tapped in that way. So ideas for identifying stakeholder groups. There's again 3 different stakeholder groups. There's a parent and community one, there's a staff one, and there's a student focus groups, and there's 2 of each of those. So again, to your point about having the different times, point well taken. But again, back to the question of how to select. So thoughts on how to select? Trustee Phelps.
I have a clarifying question first. So there's 2 groups. So there's the focus groups that they're meeting with separately. Then there's the 40 people at the end that are developing the final plan. I want to clarify what we're talking about here. Are we talking about the focus groups or are we talking about the 40 people at the end?
Great question.
Or both?
I think it's both.
Okay.
You know,
my answer would be similar, but it's easier. The focus group's a lot more people. The 40 people is a lot smaller. So I guess for me to go, I can start real quick if you don't mind.
No.
I think it's really important that we have diversity in every way, is what I would say. So I want to make sure we're diverse throughout the district. So all schools need to be represented equally. There's certainly, I think, some schools that have a lot more representation because you have a lot more involved people, right? So I want to make sure we have equal representation across the district in terms of schools, equal representation of thought, right? So I want to make sure we stay away from kind of groupthink and only pick people who we think are just going to agree with what we're saying. I want to make sure we're really broad in our thinking there. I want to make sure that when we pick people, I totally agree. I don't want the same usual suspects in my mind. However, I do value people who have been involved with the district and have put time in and have shown, dedication and appreciation for Okemos. That's valuable to me as well. So I guess maybe that's my initial thoughts on it to start the conversation at least.
Thank you. Other thoughts? Christina, do you want to share your comment?
Well, no, I agree. We definitely need diversity. I think that was well said, Andy, from every kind of diversity. Last time we did it, I think we had evening meetings every time, and I would assume that's where we want to go. Your point, I don't think we want daytime meetings. But I wonder if we should look at some of the people who applied for our open seat. That seems like a natural fit of maybe finding some people there. And we saw that was a group of people we don't usually see. So that might be a good place to
The board seat.
Yes, our board open seat.
One thought on meetings, and I just want to make sure I agree. I work at 9 to 5. Evenings work out great for me. I don't want to exclude someone who might be a server at a restaurant who works in the evening. So we have to it's easy to say, have them in the evenings because everyone works during the day, but that's not necessarily true, especially if we think about it from an equitable lens. And we want to, a lot of the people who work in the evenings are lower income folks. So it's worth making sure everyone's included. So thinking about that.
Children too.
Yeah, for sure.
And perhaps we have daycare or childcare available, have some of our
consider.
Asian students available.
Other thoughts about stakeholder selection? Trustee Shrestha?
I was wondering if we could reach out to the school buildings itself, and because there are always parents or family members who are equally active, but they might not feel like comfortable to be part of a committee or maybe they hadn't been selected, but maybe those school building leaders can identify the students or the families to apply to be in this focus groups.
So the idea is to make sure I understand this right, that then you're suggesting that schools would review applicants
Or
for a
just-
focus group.
Yeah, reach out, like submit the names after making sure families and the students, whoever they're nominating or whatever term you want to use, are okay with that. And then going back to trustee Phelps, I think also making sure we are giving families or whoever is participating enough time, because all our lives are busy, whether we're parent or student, but making sure we respect that and giving plenty of time when we do schedule these focus groups.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Our typical approach in the past has been to try to keep it out of the administrator's reach in terms of making sure we can get stakeholders that will speak truth to power and not feel obligated to, oh, the principal asked me to do this as a favor. So I really would like to keep it out of our administrators' hands. What we've typically done is gone to like the teachers union, saying, here's what we want, you pick the reps, to our parent group presidents and saying, you guys cast your net and pick the reps for us. Similar to what we do with the phase board, how the parent groups bring you the candidates. The parent groups could bring the candidates to us. So then, again, we're not having, the strategic plan is important to get really honest, raw feedback from the community. And I don't want administrators to, they reach out with really good intentions, but I just think it's a much cleaner, better look for an overview of the district if we keep them out of that. They would find people that would be great. I just think with looking at it through our equity lens and knowing, power dynamics that unintentionally exist, that I try to keep them out of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So can we just, similar to build an open seat, can we just send out, we're trying to do this, do you want to apply? Because we did receive so many different names, new names that hadn't come across before. And make it
We can certainly do that.
yeah, like somebody
I
different.
just don't want to pick who they are.
Yeah,
Well-
oh, yeah.
Need a subgroup.
That's fine if we do that. I would just caution us that then we're gonna have to have a process to pick those. And if we get 500 applications, are we gonna come in here for 8 hours and look at all the applications? I mean, is that the expectation? I just want to make sure we're thinking through what we're doing here. I don't disagree. I want to make sure we have a diverse field of people involved in this. However,
I do trust the principals to reach out to the parent groups and the parent groups to kind of cast that net. Unless the board feels differently, that's worked well in the past.
What if the ask there is to do just what you said,
Yep.
but ask for double the number that we'd expect to have from each school? And then there's to your point, kind of a smaller
A pool.
number that then we select from. Is that
That's fine.
kind of some hybrid of my work?
yeah, I don't hate that. I mean, I say this, I hesitate to say this because I really appreciate what our parent groups do and the DPC, amazing work. But it's going to be the same people. I can just see it now. You know what I mean? Like, because I can envision what each school, they're going to nominate the same people who've been involved in previous stuff. And it's just, then we get the group think, which I'm trying to, I guess, avoid. I'm not trying to minimize what the good work that they do, because I do think they give us good names. That would be my yin and yang.
Trustee Doxey and then trustee Wynn.
Yes, I guess I would ask, as we're giving questions and feedback to MASB, for them to share what they've done with other districts, ideas in terms of processes used for a stakeholder in the focus group selection. So
It's a good idea.
And we'll definitely probe.
Mhm.
You did ask about that and they said, oh, we'll work with the superintendent on that. That was their initial response, but to see what other things that they've done.
if this
'cause
is the
it's not-
space that they're in,
Yeah.
which it is,
Yeah.
they should be
Like,
able to provide some feedback. I'm not saying they give us a script, but give us some options to consider.
Yeah,
So.
agreed.
Thank you. Trustee Wynn.
I was just gonna say, if we are asking the parent groups to help select, maybe we provide some kind of clear guidelines for them to follow, like We want 5 people from your school. We want one that's not been an active PTO member. We want some, you know, like if we kind of maybe gave them a list, it could help select different than just, you know, the normal leadership. I think it's because I think we're saying that it's okay to have normal leadership, but not only normal leadership.
Well, the other thing is excuse me, if MASB does do a focus group with DPC,
Yeah.
right, then
They're
there is a,
already have-
right,
Already
so
there.
they got a voice.
Yes.
And so it'd be people who aren't on DPC and are not on DEIAC either, who do those two groups as separate. Which might get some of the voices that we want at the table. Yes, trustee. Evans.
Question. So for the focus groups that would work with staff, how feasible would it be for us to provide some sort of release time or something like that? I'm thinking like not everyone necessarily lives in the community and their input is still really valuable because we're in the midst of a teacher shortage, a bus driver shortage, a shortage of everybody. And so just to make sure that we can get, you know, broad representation from that group.
That could definitely work out. And then same thing with students. That's the one group we haven't really talked about. Ideas that would be asking administrators to provide a range of or create a process that would invite students to apply. Would be similar to parents. I mean, yes, parents.
I would just ask that we include alum in the student group.
I would also note that I think middle school students are capable of doing this as well.
Yes.
Especially since they're going to, I mean, the younger the kid, the more affected they will be long-term by the strategic plan. So.
Hey, Trustee Shasta.
I was just wondering, would it be better if, I don't know the term, like club coordinators, nominate, or again, I don't know the term we're going to use, the students instead of principal and vice principals? Because they might have a different knowledge about what a student is interested in, what their, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's another, and that could be asking administrators to ask them to nominate. Again, MASB folks are reaching out to you to do this. Do you have enough, like you could come to us always on the 10th and say, would you game plan?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. So if you have other ideas, you can shoot them to Superintendent Hood. Yep. The last order of business is
Motion for 1 year notice prior to closure.
the last order of business regarding our strategic plan is about picking a date. April 19th and April 26th were given as the dates that they can make to facilitate. This is the larger group meeting on this. These are Saturday dates. And so I heard from one trustee that the 26th doesn't work to her prior commitment. The 19th is the day before Easter. But that's a question as to whether we can make that work. Trustee Dodson.
So I was the trustee that said the 26th didn't work. I do have a prior engagement that I cannot change, but I'm available until 2 p.m. if we did like a 9 to 2, but not beyond that.
That's the 19th. Does that work? Is that out?
I don't know yet.
From roll. Trustee Wynn, does that work for you?
I would like to check, when I get home, if it's okay, because I have my new iPad and I don't have my calendar on here, so.
Okay.
But I will email tonight.
If you can do it tonight, that'd be great, because then once we have that down, then a lot of other things fall in place. They did provide May 10th as a backup date, but then we won't have the report.
Yeah, it's late.
Yeah. Okay. We want to soldier on with this?
Yeah, so we typically don't do new business, or we don't do more. We need to.
Maybe we just wait on this until the next time. Yeah, if you want to see if there's questions.
Let's talk to the group about, I feel like starting that right now is probably not productive.
So it's 5 to 10. It's been a long meeting for everyone. The next up on our agenda is a budget work session. This, again, the goals of this session were to kind of provide a foundation for a multi-year look at the budget, not any particular decisions about budgets or anything, but a multi-year look at the budget, which is some in-depth work. Thoughts about whether to wait until a future meeting to do that or to soldier on?
No objection.
Well, how far in the future are we talking? I mean, we do need to do this.
That would be my pushback is this is very important to do. I think that's incumbent on the executive committee to look at making this.
I
an
do have
extremely high
Executive Director
priority.
Lentz, who's out a week in February, so I want to make sure we respect that.
For sure. But considering it is 10 o'clock and this was intended to be probably at least an hour, deep dive. So,
We can establish a separate work. I could also have, Executive Director Walworth, survey the board if you wanted to see another time we could meet too in between now and then. Or the
For the
executive
work session.
committee could figure it out too. Yeah.
I'm asking, would that be just for the budget?
Yes.
Just for the budget work
Mhm.
session.
So that's another idea, but I don't hear anyone saying, no, let's start the intended hour-long conversation now. Is that right? Okay, then we will hear from Superintendent Hood on the next steps there, probably get pulled.
Yeah, and I do just want to thank Executive Director Lentz for the work done preparing for that tonight. That was a heavy lift. So I don't, very, very well done. So we'll have a really rich conversation when we can reschedule that.
And hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Okay, at this time in the meeting, citizens have an opportunity to address the board regarding any items of interest. Individual comments at this time will be limited to 3 minutes, but may be extended. At the discretion of the board president, a designated timekeeper will communicate to the individual who is addressing the board at 3 minutes. The board highly values public comment. However, our meeting format does not allow the board to engage in conversation with speakers. Questions or concerns may be assigned for follow-up by the board or the administration at a later date. Do we have additional?
We do not.
Can you ask Nathan if there's any additional in the back, please?
Can you do it
Thank you.
No questions. You can. No questions. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
I'd like to request agenda item for the next meeting that a motion is made that parents of OKC for the programs under consideration of elimination are provided a minimum 9-month notice. You will not find a shorter wait list of 9 months. We have spent hours in my household over the past 2 days calling and trying to even find a place to get an appointment. You can't get an appointment unless there's an opening at some places. So please get that added. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
I know I may not be personally affected by this, but I will tell you right now, I already contacted MSU CDL, which my son was on the list since he was 12 weeks in me. That's not 12 weeks old. He did not come up on their list for their program, which I have precedence over from being a former parent and from being a MSU employee over most everyone on that list. That helps. He did not come up till he was 30 months old. So if that gives you any intel on how a high quality program that I would even trust to put my child in at such a young age would be hard for parents to find. And what is offered in this community that wouldn't require such a commute? I do know right now he has a spot open, probably most likely come August. And if the board decides to cancel the care for those, I would be nervous that they would cancel my care and cancel the programming and the summer programming that they have for school age children or for 4-year-olds right now, which I've heard from rumor, they're not going to offer 4-year-old care this summer. And that should be something you're concerned about because that could be income. And there are many students who do volunteer at the center right now from that program you just mentioned that could be volunteers and could be employed this summer because I heard that employees are part of the problem with getting people in there. So I really urge you to give parents more notification, get more information from the parents in the community. These spots that you had open were never advertised broadly in the district communications that I receive because they could have gone out to principals and the rest of the community to know they were open. It's really hard to come by an infant, even 2-year-old. I checked on another wait list. He wouldn't be able to get a spot till August either, if I was in the situation some of these parents are in. So please consider that. It's extremely hard to find quality care.
Thank you. Okay, other matters? There's one thing there, so you're gonna address that?
We can wait, that can wait.
That can wait?
Yep.
Okay. So at 10:01, we are adjourned.